Hey all, you ever encounter someone you just could tell and they occupy the spirit, look, tone, touch, and feel, vibe, everything about ultra running that you love? Maybe it's how you discovered the sport in the first place. I'm Mark Vega, and this is the Run Long After 60 podcast. I had one of those runners, and her name is Catra Corbett, the Dirt Diva, at Dirt Diva 333. She literally is one of the greatest of all time ultra runners. She's been doing it for decades, but she just turned 60. She'll be 61 soon enough. But the joy she emanates is contagious. The wisdom she carries is invaluable, and her attitude can't be beat. And I'm really grateful that I got to catch up with her in episode 11 of the Run Long After 60 podcast. We didn't just spend time talking about races and records, though. As she says, you can find that anywhere, public information. But she has done 334 races on Ultra Sign Up. That doesn't cover adventuring or FKTs or international events or any road races. And to put that in perspective, 334 is about at least 1/3 more than anybody else you'll find on Ultra Sign Up. That's how many she's done. The biggest names all have between 100 and 200 maybe, but never, rarely, do they get past 300. That's how much ground she's covered, and that's how much she's influenced the sport. She knows every race director knows her. She knows so many athletes, and they know her. She shows up to volunteer everywhere. She couldn't participate at the Mammoth 200, the inaugural race, just last week, so she was out volunteering. She worked at a mile 195 aid station, and she swept the course for 17 miles in the pouring rain. Insanity. But that's what you do if you're part of the community. And as the supreme ambassador for what it means to participate in the ultra running community, what a pro, what an expert. If you haven't had the chance to read her book, Reborn on the Run, pick it up, read it, listen to it on Audible. Take 2 long runs over the weekend and listen to the book. Well, I suppose you're going to do that if you run at my pace, which is very slow. So it just, it took 2 days I got through it because it's many, many hours. So go ahead, give yourself an extra day. But it's an amazing read. It's a great story, and it's a story worth retelling. So if we don't cover the miles, what do we cover? We cover the heart behind the races, the heart behind the miles. We cover friendship. We cover dedication. We cover community, emotional intelligence, sobriety. All things important in the world, important to her life, and important in the lives of so many ultra runners. If you're picking up what I'm putting down, if you like the vibe, if you're looking for content that keeps us all fit and active and moving after 60, or you think it's an anomaly, or you have some friends who are 60 trying to do hard things, or maybe you're in your 50s barreling towards 60, well, I'm glad you're here. This is a YouTube podcast, so please subscribe to the channel, like the content, hit the notification bell, and send some of this content to someone you think could use it. Would love to hear it. Catra dropped so many truth bombs, wisdom bombs in this episode. It's going to be easy to share. I promise you that. Okay. With that, I think it's time to lace up, get ready to go, and maybe we can run a little bit with one of the greatest ultra runners of all time. It's time for Catra Corbett. Let's go. This is the Run Long After 60 podcast. Guess what? We've made it. We've made it past the first handful of episodes. That must mean we found the right spot. We found the right people. I think that's the case. But rarely do you get the opportunity with such a brand new podcast to literally speak with one of the greatest of all time. Catra Corbett is with us right here, right now. Hi, Catra. So nice to see you.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
I am, it's a pleasure to see you. As age groups alter, we keep track of ourselves in race categories based on age groups. So all of a sudden, this person, greatest of all time, more than 330 races on her ultra sign up. That's a lot of races. If you haven't joined yet or seen ultra sign up, it's more than 3 times most of the biggest runners you know. That's how many races Catra has done. So let's hear it, Catra. At 60, now going to be 61, predict for me what's going to happen in the next 10 years through your 60s. Are there going to be more people that we see like you? We're going to see fewer people because of attrition. People stop running. What do you think is going to happen? What's the community going to look like over the next 10 years?
I actually see more runners in their 60s continuing on because of the longer events like the 200s. The cutoffs are long, you get, more time to finish, and it's totally doable. It's a lot like fast packing or backpacking. So I feel it's much easier than trying to run a 100-mile race at a faster clip to be able to make those cutoffs. As we get older, we tend to slow down. And if you were already not super fast, then it gets a little bit harder. So, but I just looking at when I sign up, I look to see however many other women are in their 60s or men in their 60s. And there's actually more and more. I mean, before it would just be like 3, women or 3 men in these bigger events. And now there's like, 10 women and maybe 15 guys, because it seems like a lot of the men are still continuing on too. Running, there's obviously more men in the sport, and it's been that way since I started running ultras. So, but if you look at the results, it's more women are finishing, like as they're older than the men that are the same age. So that always tells you something about women. We're tougher.
Absolutely.
And as we get older, we still are.
Absolutely.
No,
And how
I'm
about this?
noticing.
We have a lot of data, all the data, research, reports, blah, blah, for decades now, including
Yeah,
on running and ultra. The subjects are always men, right? So we have so much data on men. But
that's true.
there's an emerging body of evidence, and there's an emerging studies, and certainly from a social media perspective, we're starting finally to pay attention to women and performance and bodies.
Exactly. Well, if
Right?
you remember back in the day when, running first started, it was no, women can't run long. Their uteruses are going to fall out. You're not going to be able to have kids. You're not going to, it was such a stigma, way back in the day when the running boom hit, it was like, but now it's like, obviously for me too, people always go, well, you can't, your knees, this, that, you're going to fall apart. When I was younger, when I first started running ultras in my 30s, people were like, oh, your knees, you're going to have problems with your knees. You're going to ruin your knees. Well, here I am, started running in 1996 and I'm still going. So I don't know, I have had a knee injury, but it was not because my knees are weak. It was like you know, literally like stepped wrong, and so had a little bit of a knee injury for like 4 months this year, but now it's fine. It doesn't bug me at all. And I just did like some physical therapy and, just took care of myself, worked out, in the gym and isolated that area and did single leg reps, just to strengthen the knee again. So, and it's like it never happened. So
When we hear you, when we're looking right at you and we're thinking, okay, wait, this person's been doing this for 330 races. She was the first woman at the time to run 100 milers. And 7 years ago, when you had an interview with Rich Roll, which was a fantastic interview, by the way, really, really right out of the gate, was very exciting to see. I think you were 53 or 54 at the time. But what was great was to see you at 53 showing exactly what it looks like, feels like, what's the look, tone, touch, and feel of what it's like to be 53 to do these things.
And before you get the chance to say that, you have to march through the history. I did this and I did this and I did this,
Yeah.
right? And so here we are almost, here we are a number of years later, and you've broken the 60 barrier, which is exciting. But
Yes.
let's shift into this, as you just now talked about injury a little bit and recovery, and clearly you've been doing that for years and years. In
Mhm.
2019, that was the first time, if I'm not mistaken. I think 2019 is the first time you did the Triple Crown of 200s. Maybe the time you did the Triple Crown of 200s, right?
I did it twice. I think that was the second time I did it because I did it with Badwater too. So I started with Badwater and then did the Triple Crown.
At the time, 6 years ago when you talked about it, and maybe that was the last time you did it, I guess, and you pointed out at the time you weren't the only woman. There was only a handful of women, but at the time you were the oldest woman to do it
Finisher of it. Yeah.
at that time, right?
Yep.
And so in those years, you've run a bunch of different races, not that Triple Crown again, but you have gone back to
Mhm.
Tahoe. You have gone back to these same big
Yes.
races, and you've done that
I have.
over time. Someone's stepping into the game right now. There's a woman right now, maybe, who's heading into her 60s, maybe. She ran marathons in the past, maybe, but all she remembered from marathon training is that erector body, because you're running 26.2 miles on the asphalt. It's like too much, right?
It will wreck
So
your body.
she heard, right? She heard, like, what about this trail business? So even in your book, which was just fantastic, such a great read and a listen, both. So that woman is looking at you and like, wait a minute, this woman's 60. She's what? She's what? She's done all these things. Uh, should we push people or invite people to do trail running to try it out?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Get messages all the time from women in their 60s, in their late 50s. And, they start following me and they're like, well, I could probably do this, and I met a woman this last week at Mammoth and she had never ran past 66 miles. She was 60, 64 years old. She started the race, never had gone past 66 miles. She's only done a few ultras. She was from Canada and she had been following me. Well, she showed up to run it because you didn't have to have a qualifier to run the Mammoth 200, but she made it to like 120 miles. She said she was going to go until she, because she's like, I don't think I'm trained for this, but I want the experience because I'm not getting any younger, but at least I can sign up and do my best, and that's what she did. She wanted to have the experience. She signed up, she got in, she showed up. I got to message her to see how it went, but she ended up and she was up there. I was like really impressed. She was the oldest woman there and she was like running in 14th woman overall for the majority of the time she was out there. And I thought, I tried to explain to her, like, sleep is a huge thing out there. And she's never done these overnight races. So I knew that she would falter at night. Did the hallucinations, she wasn't gonna be used to that. And I tried to convince her, like, you should probably sleep at mile 55 was the first sleep station. So I don't think she did, and she just went as far as she can go. But she went out of the gate pretty fast, and I was impressed. I'm like, she's a speedy woman, for her age. So, and I did see her name on the wait list for Cocodona 250. So she had already signed up for that because she's on the wait list. So, but yeah, there's an example. She knows she's not getting any younger, so might as well go for it. There's, you just pay and go as far as you can go. It's like you're not going to know unless you try. You're never going to know. And I get to the starting line of these races and you feel fit and you have trained, but you don't know what's going to happen out there. So all you can do is give it your best shot, and you're hoping to finish, but you don't know what the day is going to hold for you out there. So, but yeah, and I thought that was so brave of her. I told her, I said, you are brave. I said, for your age doing this, and I like your attitude because that's, how it should be. If you want to do something, sign up for it. And she said her daughters fully supported it. She came out by herself. So she had no crew, no pacers, but I was just so impressed. I'm like 120 something miles, never gone past 66 miles. And that was like on a 24-hour run or something that she did. So it wasn't, but she
Right.
trained in the mountains and she did tell me she was going to go out fast to bank time. But I was like, she went fast that whole time she was out there that I could see. So I don't know exactly what happened to her. Maybe she fell, maybe something happened, but I got to get in contact with her to see exactly what happened. But I was impressed for her age. So I saw her at check-in. That's where I met her.
Oh, okay.
And that
That's
was
why
on
you knew the
Thursday,
data.
and
So,
the race started on Friday. But I never saw her like on the course because where I was working, it was at mile 195. And then I was sweeping. And so she wasn't the last runner where I was sweeping. But that was impressive.
so what we can't tell from Ultra Sign Up, Catra, is, but we have a guess because if you're part of this community, it's how it works. How
Mhm.
much time? Let's go with time, or maybe number of races. How much time or number of races do you spend volunteering and in support of races when you're not actually running the race, but you're in support? What percentage of time would you say in the universe of all you do, and it is what you do, but in the universe of that, how much time could we expect people to, if you're going to be a part of the community, that would be volunteering?
Well, I volunteered probably 76 hours last weekend at Mammoth 200. This weekend, since I can't, we don't even know to go into it, my abscess in my tooth, I can't run because I need a root canal. So I'm going to go volunteer at Moab 240. So I'm going to be out there working 4 shifts, 12-hour shifts for 4 days or 5 days. So that's how much time, like just like at the 200s is a lot more work of volunteering. I volunteer when I can here at our races, but we don't have that many. When I lived in the Bay Area, I volunteered a lot more because we had a lot of races that we can volunteer at. So anytime that I can't run it or I'm signed up, or even if I DNF, I always volunteer after. So I've done that a few times when I've had to DNF at a 200. I stay and I volunteer after to help.
Okay, so you got pulled off the race or for whatever reason or too slow or something, you
Yep.
couldn't finish, so you just stayed and volunteered.
Yep, that's what I do. Yeah, because I'm already there. I mean, why not? I can, work at an aid station or work at the finish line. And you get, so another thing too, just to let people know. So if you volunteer at, say you want to run a 200 and you're like, yeah, it's kind of pricey. They do have payment plans, but if you volunteer, they give you credit towards running the race. So you get a big chunk of money depending upon how many, days you volunteer, but you can get a free entry. So you don't have to pay the, $1,900 or whatever it is, or $1,800 to get in.
Right.
So
I would
that
hope that
definitely
there's some
helps.
cachet. If somebody knows, if the race director knows that it's you specifically, and you're going to be there volunteering and you're at an aid station, I bet that really raises people's spirits and everything because they see you, they have an idea of who you are and how you are. And if they see someone sees you, making quesadillas at an aid station, I bet
Yeah.
that just uplifts all their spirits.
It does. People get so happy. They're like, that's, like last weekend. They're like, you know what? That's so awesome of you to come out, even though you can't run it. Because a lot of people think, God, I'm not going to be able to run it. I'm not going to be able to be around it because I'm going to be too depressed. To me, it's like, no, that's my giving back to my community. We should all give back to our community. If we can't be there, I mean, Mammoth is not that far from where I live, but I got to drive to Moab and it's a far away. But it's like, you know what? No, they need me. They need volunteers. They've been asking for volunteers, and I look, I'm like, I'm volunteering. They need me out there. It's like I can't run it. I was going to be there anyways. And they give a lot of perks for the volunteers. So I'm going to be working at the start finish area, and I get to camp out there for free instead of have to worry about getting a place to stay. And I'm going to bring my dog, my boyfriend, who was supposed to run it, Phil. He's not running it. So he's going to fly out in his plane and volunteer for 3 days with our other dogs. So yeah, we're just going to be out there volunteering and cheering everybody on. And, wherever they need us, we're at the start finish, like cheering the runners when they come in. And I said, I'll work the night shift all night. So when those first runners are coming in, I'll be with the cowbell and cheering everybody on when everybody else is sleeping.
Outstanding. I bet the seeds of volunteerism too comes not just from a life of service doing other things, but I think there are some specific times when you're running and you show up at an aid station and you need help. And when you are a runner and you experience people that are giving you that help, that's pretty amazing. I think
You appreciate the volunteers more. And I feel like everybody should volunteer at least. Back in the day, in order to get in some of these races, you had to do either trail work or volunteer at aid stations. It's not so much that anymore that they make you do that, but it was very much back in the day. Like if you ran a 100-mile race, that was a requirement. You couldn't run the race until you fulfilled your volunteer, either doing trail maintenance or working at an aid station. And I always ended up doing the trail maintenance on my local trails. We'd get groups together, but I'd still work like some local races. And when you do that, then you have an appreciation, especially during a 200-mile race, because this is the only second time I volunteer from start to finish at a 200-mile race. And when I did that at Tahoe 200 a couple of years ago, I realized it's a lot of work because the aid station we worked at was open the entire time. Like we had to set it up and everything. So we were out there 5 days, and at the very end, me and my friends swept the course, like with the last runner, the last 20 miles to the finish line. So you definitely have an appreciation because you get tired and you're like out there and you still got to be helping these people, and be on it because they're totally out of it when they're coming in like at mile 175 and they're just like, you're like, and you're tired too, but you're like, okay, what do you need? You got to just let that go because they've been out here the whole time. At least we've been doing some naps.
Yeah. You know what? Two things come to mind. A guy told me who was doing his first, he was doing, I think the first maybe Tahoe that he did, and wasn't sure how it was going to go, but he saw you out on the trails, you specifically.
Uh-huh.
And he was concerned about his sleep and he didn't know how to do it. So he shared a couple of miles with you and you were encouraging, but here's the thing, we were encouraging and you're very deliberate. Well, here's what I do for sleep sometimes. Da, 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 da. And then you went on because that's what you do, right? I'm telling you, Catra, that I bet, maybe you're just humble. I don't know. You seem like such a wonderful, humble person, but I think you glide through those trails and they see you. They draft off that energy of you because it's you, but it's also what you represent. Meaning, this is kind of the spirit of this community, right? It's the spirit of that. And so I can also imagine.
I'm paying to be there. So it's like no complaining. When I hear somebody complaining around me, I'm like, you need to knock it off. You are lucky that you're here. You should be grateful. There's people that are suffering from a disease right now that would change places with us in a heartbeat to be out here. So change your attitude. That's how
your
I
attitude is right.
When I'm suffering out there, I'm like, you know what? Let's just remember there's friends who have passed away that used to do ultras with me, and it's like, they want to still be alive doing this. You know what I mean? So it's like, I can't be like, oh, I shouldn't be here. I'm suffering. It's like, you got to change your attitude. And I think that's what makes a difference. And that's why I've been able to do as many races as I have, because I always try to not stay inside my head very long, like with that bad attitude. Like when yes, of course you're going to hurt, you're going to have highs and lows, but I always try to make sure that I have more highs than lows because I know, yes, you're hurting right now, but get to the next station, take a nap, eat some food and continue on and you'll feel a difference, So that's why I wear bright colors because it makes everybody happy on the trail. They're like, there you are. Like every time we see you, you make us smile,
Indeed, it's true. And I've seen other people in other races that I'm pretty sure they're inspired by you. So they come up with some colors, and of course they're not you. They're not trying to be you, but it is
they
just the vibe.
A lot of women have said they started wearing more colors. They were not confident, but they see me. They're like, she's always so colorful, and that vibe makes me, makes them happy when they have more color on. They're like, who cares what other people think? And that's always been my attitude since I was young. I don't care what people think.
I saw a couple of shoe reveals of you. I don't know when, but sometime in the last year or so. But when you get shoes and the colorway is like appropriately, it seems like a Catra Corbett color. And like, oh, it's a good colorway too. And so immediately I'm thinking, man, that's right. It has to be. But how about this one? And until you just said it, I never imagined this. What if this has to be every ultra? I'm telling you, this is every 100-miler. Man, no, every 200 miles. Last person's fantasy because they just need that little encouragement. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
You're the last guy in that 200-mile race, and I look behind me, and and Catra is the sweeper. Like I'm going to get my ass to the next. I'm going. I'm going to stay ahead of you. I will not let you catch me. And I can imagine you're hanging back that 50 yards, 100 yards,
No, we
just
stay
keeping
right
an
back
eye on them,
behind him.
keep them safe.
Yeah. Well, we chit chat. So we're usually when you're coming in with the last runner, like at Tahoe, for instance, we kept like our runner would pass, like we were with the last guy and then he would pass the next guy. So we'd have to stay with the next one. And there was like 4 of them leapfrogging. So we got to hang out with the last runners, throughout the time and just chit chatting. And the last guy was in his 60s that year, 2 years ago. And he had, he's diabetic. So he was like always been diabetic, so he has to check his insulin, do all these extra things throughout an event. And he was like, I want to say he was like 63 or 64.
Okay.
And he was so chipper. And he, I'm like telling him, you got to keep moving. Don't stop to talk to me. I'm right behind you. We could chit chat as we're getting to the finish line. But he was just such a great person to be like the last finisher because they do the whole, like they make an arch and everything. So I go, you're purposely trying to stay behind the other guy so you get to be the last finisher. Because it's like whoever's the last one,
they're
they make
competing to be last. Yeah.
But no, the other guys went on ahead, but it was pretty cool because he kept stopping me and he wanted, he's kind of out of it, but he wanted to like look at me and he's talking to me. And I'm like, no, you can talk and move. So, but this past week at Mammoth, there was a guy who had never ran past 50 miles. He signs up for Mammoth. I love these stories because you would never hear these unless you were part of the race. And we swept at mile 108, me and my friend John, from 108 to 141. Is that right? Yeah. So it was like, it ended up being 34 miles. It was supposed to be 32 in a storm, a rainstorm, hailstorm, like sideways wind, torrential downpour. They stopped the runners during the race, but we didn't have an aid station in between when we left when it was fine. The storm hit. And when we got to 8 miles, there was only a water drop. They had aid stations pretty much regularly every 8 to 10 miles, I think was the longest you went. But because there was no aid station there, we had no clue that they stopped the race. So we were behind these like few runners because we had to go 15 miles to get to the next aid at that point. So anyways, we were running with this guy and I was, we were trying to encourage him. He was like kind of getting tired. And I go, have you run very many ultras? And he goes, no, just a couple. He goes, me and my 3 friends signed up and they'd never gone past 50 miles. So one had already dropped and this guy had made it past 108. And so we were getting him to 141, but he was so tired. Like he was stopping on the trail, laying down. And I'm like, because the next aid station was a sleep station. So I was trying to be kind of a little bit tough, but nice too, because I wanted to get him to that aid station where he could actually sleep indoors. Because he kept laying down and it was freezing. We had went through these 2 storms and now it's dry. And then we had to go through a water crossing at 1:30 in the morning. That was horrible. My feet.
Yeah, your socials. Thank you for those. Your social shares, like you showed that.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Where's I was trying to figure out, wait, what is she? Is she making? Like, what is she doing? And then I saw the rain. There was reporting of all the rain. And it's horrible. One thing to do a water crossing and then do a water crossing at night. Do a water crossing at night while it's in the storm. And doing a water crossing at night.
For him, but he didn't complain. The guy that we were staying behind him wasn't complaining, but he was getting really tired and he kept wanting to lay down. And I was like, looking at my watch, I'm like, John, we got to keep him moving because he kept slowing down. He was really suffering.
Yeah.
And he was getting very sleepy and he wasn't eating. And I'm like, I gave him a no-dose. So I had some stuff with me and we're allowed to help the runners as we're sweeping. We can give them supplies, they said. Because I asked them, like, can we give them Advil or whatever we want if they need something? And they said yes. So I gave him, because he had never been up through the night. And so we got him into 141 and I could just tell he was over it. So I was hoping that he would go back out because he had 2 hours to spare. And that was my goal with him. I kept telling him, I said, we need to keep this time, keep walking. I said, we need to get you in there with a decent time so you have time to spare. You can sleep for an hour because he knew he was kind of out of it. And he was listening to me, and he was okay. So we got him there, and then they put him down on a cot. And there were still a bunch of other runners there. That hadn't left yet, that had made it in there ahead of him. So then once we left, I had no idea if he went on, and I was working at mile 195 the rest of the time. So after I finished sweeping for 17 hours, then I went home and slept for 2 hours, came back and worked at 195 through the bigger storms that we had, where it was just crazy. But he came back I think he was getting his drop bags, and he ended up dropping, but he came over and he thanked me. He goes, "Thank you for encouraging me. I really appreciate it. It means a lot." And I was like, I just thought, oh, he's probably thinking I'm being a bitch because I'm telling him, like, well, let's go. Come on, we got to move, But he said he had a great experience, and now he knows what to expect.
Right.
So he
wants
to do
baptism by
he
fire.
wants to do it again. But I don't. So 2 of the friends dropped, and I believe the one finished. That that all 3 started, and they were from Reno. But it wasn't a negative experience for him. He had a good experience, he said. So, but it just goes to show, it's like you're out there and you're encouraging people, and it's like, he didn't really know who I was. He goes, "Have you done the," because he hasn't done that many ultras. And I go, "Oh yeah, I've done a bunch." And then he's like, "What? You've done 22 and 100 or 200s, and you've done 330. I go, "Yeah, I've been around the block a very long time." And he's like, "Wow." He goes, "How old are you?" And I go, 60. He goes, "I would have never thought you were 60. And I go, "Thank you."
Yeah, that's a true story too. So you go back to what mile aid station 195. So
195.
did any of the people that 195? So any of the people that you saw in the earlier times when you saw them,
they came through. We saw them. So the girl there was a few people at an aid station, but they were all staying ahead of him, who was last, the guy that we were getting through. But we saw a bunch at that one aid station that they were leapfrogging, but then in the end, it was just mostly him for the last 8-10 hours. Like, we could see the other runners in front of him, but then they got far ahead. And there was a girl that was around him, and she finished, and she was last. At one point, she was behind him, and so she was the last finisher at the race, I believe, or second to the last. And those are the ones that are fun to watch, the last place finishers, that are coming in.
No, I agree.
And then the oldest finisher there was Danny Westergaard, who's amazing. He's 66, but he always calls it the old man lane. He gets that listing, where you see going sideways. He had it at mile 50. So when he came into our aid station, he's just but he's tough as nails.
Wow.
Man. And I go, "Sit down." I go, "Let me get your drop bag, take a nap." He was so out of it. He goes, "Yeah, let me just sleep for 20 minutes. And he's done Badwater 15 times, something like that. And he used to do Badwater and then turn around and go back. So he'd always do a double Badwater, but he finished, and and it just goes you to show, he had that whole listing thing, but he's like, "I know this is just something I get. I get it, and I can muscle through." And just a trooper. I'm just it looks so painful, but I'm like, man, that Danny is so tough. He's one of the toughest old dudes I know. He just keeps going, and he's like, "Oh, whatever." It's just, his attitude is awesome. So he ended up finishing. I think he was second to the last. So
he's a model for sure. I've been.
Yes.
He's been in my sights for a long time, but by comparison, he's got 110 races.
Yeah, you should have him on, because now he's doing all the 200s. And
right.
He finished Arizona Monster 300 this year.
Yes, he did this year.
Yeah.
He did. And I think he was there was 4 Cocodona this year. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
At Cocodona this year, there were 4 people over 60. 14 people entered. Only 4 of them finished. One of them, Stephanie Irving, was the only woman. And Danny, I believe, was one of the 3 guys who finished. So it's very fascinating.
And it was gnarly weather, too. It just goes to show how tough they are. Because that kind of weather, even out at Mammoth this weekend, the majority of people dropped, I think, because of the weather, because they just were not used to being in those kind of conditions, and he's just goes through everything. He's been through everything. So it's his experience, if you just watch, You know, you have to have the right gear. And I mean, even though these runners that were out there, they had to have the right gear. But I think, you know, it shows you with your mindset as you get older that you just keep, you know, to keep going because it's going to get better at some point. You know, when you're younger, your mindset is like, I'm damaging myself. I'm hurting myself. This is painful. But you don't realize, you know, come with age comes experience, you know, and the longer you do these things, then you're like, if I just make it to the next aid station, then if I feel like dropping, I'll drop then. And that's what I always try to tell people when I'm working an aid station. Don't drop here now because you want to. I go, let's regroup, let's eat, let's get calories, let's take a nap, go to the next one. And then if you want to drop. And I do that in the race when I'm running with another runner, when they're like, I can't keep going. I'll see somebody I know and I'm like, hey, how's it going? They're like, no, I'm dropping. I'm like, oh, no, you're not. I'll sit down next to him and I'll give him a rally pep talk. And I go, I'll wait with you. We'll eat, finish napping, and we'll go together through the night. And if you want to drop at the next one, go right ahead. And then, you know, you can change somebody's race. That can make a huge difference. And 9 times out of 10, I've gotten people to the finish line like that. Because I know they pay a lot of money to be there. And it's like, you know, don't drop early on when you just, because you're think, you know, I'm tired or I'm this. Like, we're all having that same thing. We're all tired. We're all going to be sore. We're all going to have low points. We're all going to have high points. It's going to switch around. But and I always say, if it's really physical, like if you've twisted an ankle, if you've done something that's going to make it worse, like when I had hurt my knee before I started Arizona Monster, and then 60 miles in, I'm like, I could go 100 miles, but I know I have to stop anyways. Like, I'm just going to stop now. You know, I'm not going to make it worse. And it took 4 months for it to heal.
Wow.
So that goes to show you it could have gotten worse. I might have done more damage than had to have surgery, you know. But I tell people that, I go, if it's not like a condition that's going to put you out of running and you're just sore, or you're just, you know, maybe you need a massage or whatever, let's just go again and see how it goes.
Yeah, that's great advice. And if it comes from you, that's one thing.
Yeah. And people don't know that. You know, if you're not going to tell somebody that, they could be in their head and easily drop. And that's why I always, when I'm working an aid station, it's like the runners that are working it as opposed just to volunteers, you know how to handle the runners because you've been there, you know, and it's like, don't let them drop. You don't want them to drop. Like, especially in a 200, like I said, that they're putting in a lot of training and a lot of money to be there. So it's like, you know, sometimes this is their only shot. Once in a lifetime, they want to do something like this. And so you don't give them an easy way out. You go, let's just eat, you know, you just kind of baby them and treat them like a toddler and kind of dangle something in front of them and then scooch them off, you know, and ignore when they're complaining about stuff. I always go, oh yeah, and I go, listen, I go, what do you want to eat? Here, have some soda, a drink. You know, you just don't feed into that.
It feels like the perfect.
Easily. And when I recruit people, the same thing. They get like that, and I ignore them. I do tough love. My friend Gabby, who was running Badwater one year, she was complaining. And every time she complained, I'm like, okay, let's go now. Like, time to get out of here. You know, I was like ignoring her. And she said, you were so mean. She goes, but I thank you because you didn't care what I was complaining about. And I go, I knew you were fine. You were tired. Like, of course you're going to be tired.
You're deliberate, experienced, and knowledgeable. That's not me. Deliberate, experience, and knowledge, right? Let's try.
I don't want people to regret it. People regret sometimes when they drop because they shouldn't have dropped. You know, they shouldn't have. And all my drops were because there was an issue going on. And I know people tend to drop when they're tired or they're fatigued. It's like, yeah, but you're going to get that in 200. You're going to get that in 100. But in a 200, you get all of that. You know, and you have to keep going, and you're in all kinds of conditions. It's like uncomfortable, but you have to embrace the uncomfortableness. You know, it's like you could sleep when you get home, when you're done at the finish line. But it does suck sometimes. Like, that storm sucked for all those runners out there last weekend. But it's like, you know what? It's part of Mother Nature. You don't know what she's going to throw at you. You've got to have the right gear. If you have the right gear, you can just keep motoring on.
Yeah, the image that I saw from the experience that you shared was the thing that I can't shake is the image of holding, because there was 2 of you sweeping, right? Holding all of the flags, because you think about, so you're holding all the flags. looks like covered in the flags, and the wind is blowing and it's cold water crossing. And I'm like, man, that person is really here to support this community. That is a picture of somebody supporting the community.
It is. It is. And somebody, you got to do it. You got to do what you can do. And like I said, I couldn't be running it, but it's like, I'm not going to sit home and feel sorry for myself. I'd rather be there and be part of the story and part of the journey of that. That was the inaugural race, the first time they're having it. And it's like, next year, I'll do it. I'll be there next year. And, it's like now, and I saw some areas I hadn't been on, in that area. I hadn't been out to the meadow that we started, Crooked Meadow. I had been through one of the areas that we swept, but it was so sad because I was explaining to John, I'm like, this is a really cool area. This mono crater is amazing. I go, it's just like you're on the moon. And he's like, I can't tell, but we saw like really cool obsidian rock, and because I was on the backside and I hadn't been on the backside of it, and it was just glistening. We were like, wow, we're trying to capture it with our video, and we just were like, every corner we turned around, there was like another big piece of obsidian, and we're like, wow, this is so cool. Like we were kids, we're like picking it up, looking at it in the dark, and we're like, this is amazing.
The more stories I hear from you, Catra, about volunteering and being in service to people, fascinating to me really is that the seeds get planted early. So your book is amazing. I pushed it to every person I know who's interested in ultra running at all.
Yay, thank
in
you.
no small part, you're welcome. In no small part, because the first chapter is really great. And as you're writing a book, and I'm going to hear a little bit about that, but a lot of decisions you have to make. So when you make a decision to kind of how to start the book, it's pretty intense. So you start the book by talking about your first 100 miler, which is Rocky Raccoon. You've done other ultras, you've been around for a minute, but 100 miles is different. 100 miles is different.
Yes.
And
actually I had only been around for a short time in the ultra scene.
Yeah, you're brand new.
Yeah.
Brand new. So you didn't, and you famously, you just said you didn't know anything about anything really. But you certainly didn't know what's going to happen to your feet after, a certain number of miles.
No, I didn't. I had no idea.
So the volunteers and the medical support, but the volunteers during Rocky Raccoon were there to help.
Yep. They slapped on some duct tape. That's what we used back in the day. There was no leukotape. It was duct tape. Duct tape fixed everything back in those days.
So valuable information here, because Catra has been doing this for many, many years. And yes,
there was no internet when I was doing this. You used to sign up for races and send in a check. If some people don't even know what checking accounts are.
What checks are.
Yeah, a piece of paper. And we used to have to, there was no printing it up. It was Ultra Running magazine had the applications in the back of the magazine for the races. So that's how you filled it out. And that's how you sent it in with your check.
So you're committed to a 100 miler. You're going to do Rocky Raccoon, and you're excited that it's happening. For sure, it's happening. It's happening. You get there after a number of miles, you'd run 50 Ks before you'd run it, but you'd never experience blisters. So you get bad blisters.
Really bad. Like where my feet were on fire, so bloody and painful. And I got to the aid station. They taped them up with the duct tape. And I was like, okay, because I didn't know what to do. And they're like, you have bigger shoes. And I said, no, I have change of socks. I didn't know I needed a bigger shoe.
Right.
So, like a half size bigger. And I had no idea. So I was changing my socks every 20 miles. And so they duct taped me and I sent me out on my next loop and got back around. And I was just like, these are really bad. So they went to take the duct tape off. And they ripped it off, and what comes off with it? The skin of the blisters. So raw skin against the sock is so painful because they're like, just put the tape back on. Like I didn't want it off, but at this point my skin had come off, and then they just slapped some more over it because I'm like, it's either that or friction from a sock, which would be worse. At least the duct tape's going to stay over it. So they put the duct tape back on, and the other one they hadn't pulled off yet. And I'm like, just leave it. So I continued on, and oh man, it was so painful. It was just, if you've ever had a blister, like rubbing against something, it's just painful. It was almost like, I explain it like I was running on hot coals. Like I couldn't keep my feet. They were like every step, like you were on fire. Like, so you had to keep moving. So yeah,
So
and I was delirious.
that's 1999, and it was the first time. Why would you keep going? Like, you were so determined.
I came there to run.
That you were
I came there to run 100 miles. I wasn't going to quit. I came there to run 100 miles because that's what one of the volunteers said. Are you going to stop when I had one more loop to go? And the guy I was dating at the time, Kevin, he wasn't a runner. And he goes, you should probably stop. And I'm like, I came to run 100 miles. I'm going to keep going. So I took off out of there, and I had no pacer, and he wasn't crewing me. Like, he wasn't at the aid stations. He came, but he went to go see where JF Kennedy got shot, John F. Kennedy. Like, he was like touristy in Texas doing I don't know what he was doing. But I've never had a crew, so I didn't know, like, we didn't know anything. Oh, and the thing with I didn't realize about flashlights. So this is back in the day. The lighting systems were not, like, we don't have fancy headlamps and LED lights. And so, remember those yellow kind of flashlights with a handle that everybody had at their house? Like, if the power went out, that's what I had.
Wow, a big old light.
And we went to the store because I'm like, I probably need another light. So I got a bicycle like that goes on the front of a bike, but I held it in my hand. But you know what I didn't realize? That the bulbs go out. Like, this is the first time running through the night, and you have to change your bulbs in these lights. I'm like, I mean, that's not something you do now, but it was a reality. Like, the bulbs go out and you have to replace the bulb. So I luckily had the two lights, because Kevin's like, when I came in, I'm like, this thing's not working. And he goes, you got to change the bulb. And I was like, what? So it was very complicated back in those days. Like, just to be able to finish, I'm thinking about like what we went through back in those days. Like, it's so easy breezy now for people. Not saying that the distance is easy breezy, but we have so many amazing things. We have so much information. I had no information. There was no YouTube. There was no Instagram, no Facebook, nowhere you could get information. They had what was called the Ultra List, and it was a bunch of men on there. And it was just like, you couldn't really ask questions as a female because they like, what are you, stupid? They had this attitude. It was the old school men that are now all in their 80s, or 90s, or not alive still, that were on that thing.
Right. So
I was afraid to ask because they already thought I was weird when I came into this whole thing. Like, who is she with all these tattoos and piercings, back in those days, and I didn't have as many tattoos as I have now, but just having the piercings and being somebody different than what they were used to as females were running it, it was like, I was paving the way for myself. I'm like, I got a lot of weird looks and a lot of attitude from men, because it was like an old school. It's like the old guys club, that were doing these. And they're like, we've never seen you before, kind of attitude. And it's like, yeah, well, I came out of nowhere, I guess.
Yeah, I think you were the first one for so many years, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the only one for some period of time.
Yeah. I mean, there was like very few women running these things at that time. If you had 100 runners out there, maybe there was 20 women in the race, if you were lucky, Now it's grown, obviously, so it's amazing, that women are coming out of the woodwork to do these things. And like I said, older women. And, it's like I kind of feel like, in a sense, because I was younger back when I started. I was 31 when I started. I started running at 30. So 32 when I did my first ultra. So, and that was considered young.
It was 34 at Rocky Raccoon. So your first 100, it said 34.
Wow.
February 1999.
1999. Yeah, you're right. So 34. Yeah, when I ran my first 100. So, and that was considered young back then, because there wasn't like a bunch of, now we have 20 somethings. We have a lot of young runners that are amazing, and they're truly, speedsters coming into this sport, that back in the day, it's like all these times that even in the 200s started as kind of more of people from the long distance hiking community were coming into these. So the finishing times were not like they are now, like at Mammoth. It was like, oh my God, they were so much faster. They were 2 hours faster than they thought they were going to be, because when they told us to start sweeping, we were going to sweep at 1 when the aid station closed, but we ended up showing up early because it was like the last runner was there at 11. I mean, at 10:30.
Wow.
10 or 10:30. Yeah. So goes to show you that a lot more faster runners are coming into this sport, and they're making, well, even with hundreds. I mean, you didn't see people doing 13, 14-hour 100-milers. That's amazing. The times have really shifted.
Yeah,
for sure.
the times are, that is crazy. There's a woman you reference in the book. I don't know if she was real or not. You called her Kim with bright red lipstick.
She's still around. Yep. She still has bright red lipstick. She's still around, and she just finished her 100th 100-miler. I think it was last year. And she still goes, she walks mostly now. So she does a lot of the 48-hour races where they're like looped courses where she could just walk and get 100 miles in, but she's still chugging along. And she saved, and I always bring that up. She remembers too. She remembers being there and saving me. I go, if it wasn't for her, I knew nothing about caffeine and no dose, and I didn't even drink coffee back then, which I love now. But she was like a no dose, and I was like, that's drugs, because I had only been sober for not very many years at that point. And I was like, no, that's like taking meth. It's speed. And she's like, no, it's like drinking coffee. So I got to an aid station and they had no coffee. And that's when she was like, just take one of these. She goes, trust me, it's just like drinking a cup of coffee. And she made me feel more at ease. And she goes, just take half of it and put the other half in your pocket and take it if you need it. So she gave me that half, and within 5 minutes, I was like wide awake and talking. And I was like, oh my God, like that made the world a difference, because I was stumbling, literally stumbling. I never had been awake. I mean, I'd been awake for the night when I was on drugs, but not on just being awake out in the middle of the wilderness, continually going all these hours. And that caffeine was a game changer.
Right. Right. So
and it is.
At 34, your first 100-mile race, Rocky Raccoon, your feet are so messed up, like you never had them messed up before. You're falling. After that wasn't the biggest problem because you started to fall asleep. So then caffeine comes. And is that the first time at that 100-mile race to steer down a sobriety branch for just a second? But tell me about that struggle, because in the book, you make it like, wait a minute, the caffeine pill represented me like doing drugs, heading back into drugs.
It did.
So how did in that one race, when you decided to trust this older ultra runner who had done this before and said, just do this, you'll be better. In that moment, did it make sense for you that, oh yeah, wait.
It did. She convinced me explaining, she goes, look, she had the box, the little package of it. She goes, it says right here, 200 milligrams of caffeine. It's equivalent to 1 cup of coffee. She was explaining that part of it, because at that point I wanted coffee, but there was no coffee at the aid station. And she saw that I was asking for the coffee, and that's how it happened. So, and I didn't drink coffee back then. I didn't drink caffeine. And so that made a difference. So from there on out, I used caffeine at night in the 100-milers. It's like, but this is not a drug, like that kind of drug. It's not like I'm doing meth. And I got, and absolutely love my espresso now, but I will do the caffeine pills at night, because I don't drink coffee, because I'm prone to bladder infections in long races from getting a little bit dehydrated. I just tend to, even if I'm drinking a lot. So I'm definitely afraid of drinking like a cup of coffee or a shot of espresso. So the caffeine pills, as long as I eat food, it doesn't have the acid like the coffee does. So it's not going to disrupt anything. So I still continue to use those.
There's a big portion of the book where you talked also about bladder and about the physical manifestations of body disruption when you're doing these long races. So the other thing I really appreciate in the book, and one of the reasons why I push it out to people as much as I can, is because understanding your own physiology is critical, because we're all individuals. But even though that's true, we don't always experience the same kind of physiological distress every time we run 30 miles. It's different, a little different all the time. So
it's
now you are. That's right. So now that you're 300 some races in, you have now attained the glorious wisdom age of 60, right? So now you got it
Yep.
dialed in now. So
No, I don't.
in tongue in cheek. So with that,
But things
top-
change. Things that worked 5 years ago don't work now. Things that I could eat back then, now I'm like, oh, I can't eat that. It's going to make me sick.
right? So
Yeah.
can we talk about women right now? And can we specifically talk about, because what the hell am I don't know about it. All I do is ask questions all the time. Let's talk about aging women. The power and importance, we just don't even understand it exactly yet, but the role that perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause play in aging athletes.
I feel since I do run and I've always exercised, that going through all that menopause and stuff, it was easier for me. I didn't suffer a lot of the things that women go through, like all these hot flashes. I mean, I had them off and on, but not like for years. It was just like maybe, within a year I had started having hot flashes and then they went away. And, I went later because I still had my period until I was like 56 years old, 55, it was still going. And a lot of women stop like in their late 40s, early 50s, so I think mine was, my mom's not alive, so I couldn't ask her. And my sister had a hysterectomy, I guess, because I was like trying to, who am I going to ask? I can only ask my mom or my sister. And she's like, yeah, I never went through it. And she's a bodybuilder. So she's like, I never went through any of that because she had she had a hysterectomy or whatever. So it didn't affect her. But I feel like when my friends had complained about a lot of these things they were going through at the same time, like my best friend who's 60, she's going to be 61. But I didn't experience all that. So I'm like knocking on wood because I don't know, maybe it's because I always took good supplements. I worked at Whole Foods and took all natural supplements for years. And maybe because I'm vegan and I've always exercised, I worked out in a gym. Yeah, I didn't do like gain a bunch of weight. I didn't, and that, so it's hard for me, because I hear women complaining and I'm like, I didn't go through a lot of that, but I do know for a fact that a lot of women that run, they don't have it as bad as non-running women or non-exercise women that don't exercise. I don't think we go through those as much because the exercise helps us in whatever way, to go through these things easier without as much.
Yeah, it sounds like
issues.
fitness level has a lot to do with it. And I think the women I've spoken with so far, having the opportunity to talk on the podcast and interview and pre-interviews, all those things, everybody is fit. So I haven't got this a nutritionist, a whole bunch of many different women, and so everybody acknowledges obviously it's really a thing, but there may well be some level of a level of fitness that kind of changes things.
I think it does.
And in the book, because you just did the perfect segue here, it's a horrible, crushing, traumatic experience. But ultimately, you've been eating in a vegan lifestyle for many, many, many years now, right?
Yep. I became like right when I quit drugs and got sober, I switched to vegan, and I was vegetarian when I was a kid because I was in the 4-H, and then I would name all the ranch animals, and my parents are like, those are not pets. Those are not your pets. So just, I was a sensitive kid, I guess. That's a way to look at it, that I had a connection. And I always thought maybe I would be a veterinarian because I loved animals that much when I was a kid. We raised animals, but we sold them at the fair. Like my sisters were in Future Farmers of America and all that. But I just it traumatized me knowing that my animals were going to get eaten. And then Charlie, the steer that stayed the longest after all the other ones got sold, ended up in the freezer at the house. And so, I ate chicken and fish. That was my thing, and cheese and things like that. So when my mom was Italian, so she'd make pasta with meatballs, but I wouldn't eat the meatball, but there was still meat floating in there, but I didn't connect that at 9 years old. As long as the meatball wasn't in there, I was fine.
Right.
Yeah. Once I got sober, I'm like, I've been wanting to go vegan, so I'm going to go vegan. So I did.
So since that time, since the sobriety and ultra running and veganism decades now, and you've been consistently comfortable with that, it sounds like, let me make a guess, or I don't know, I don't want to make any assumptions, but sometimes people make those choices, and I believe they are choices, even
Mm-hmm.
though it might be characterized as a disease, this and that. Sometimes once you make that switch, it's not like there's a temptation to go back. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So do you feel that once you left those the old ways, even though you had to revisit them later, years later to write the book,
Yeah.
but you left
Yeah.
all that behind you, right? And now,
Yeah.
so so it's not like you think about having meatballs now, like you're not tempted to
No, 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 no.
enjoy it's a lifestyle, it's who you are.
Yeah.
Veganism
Because
becomes who you are, I guess.
exactly. So for me, because a lot of runners will become vegan and then they'll go back because it affects their performance, or it doesn't. Like I have friends that were vegan and they said, actually, I was a better runner when I went vegan. And they're like, I should probably go back, after talking to me, but I don't know running any other way. I was vegan before I started running. So for me, it's just, it's a lifestyle. Just like I would never do drugs again because I don't want to be that person. I know where that would have, where I would end up if I was that way, but it's so far removed from my life now that but actually it helps other people because sometimes people will say, "Oh, I didn't know," I like to constantly put it out there because I get a lot of people coming to me saying, you were a big part of my journey, why I got sober, why I
Oh,
decided
okay.
to do ultras, why I decided to do that." And that's why I talk about it a lot because I've been doing this for so long. Maybe some people don't know that, and then they're like, "Wow, she's older and she's sober and she can do these things." But I always like to talk about that because I think it's an important people can connect with those of us that are sober. And for me to maintain my sobriety for 31 years is a long time. But they're like, how did you keep going? And I go, you know what? It's one day at a time. There was times back then where I could easily have gone back to make things easier. You don't want to feel pain or whatever. But I'm like, nope, I'm just going forward and I'm going to deal with it. And therapy helps. I always say it's really important you get sober. You address the issue why you were doing drugs, why you were drinking, because we don't, as little kids, go, I want to be a drug addict and an alcoholic. It's always going to be something happening to you.
Right.
It's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to do math. And, it's like, no. But I think that part of it you have to address the core. And it's usually a core. I mean, the majority of the time why people become addicts is something happened, or something traumatic
Trauma.
events happen. Maybe their parents got a divorce, whatever. Nothing doesn't have to actually happen to you, but something in their life made them feel that they had to do that. And then once you work that out, like I said, it was really important. Therapy is really important. I still do therapy to work on yourself because there's always work to do. We're not perfect. As much as people think, oh, you're amazing. No, I'm not that amazing, but I'm constantly working to be a better person than I was yesterday. So, and
I
that's
think
the
that
key.
yeah, that defines for me anyway what it means to be one of the greatest of all time. I think. I'll
Yeah.
tell you what, when I got this, right, when I first
Huh?
read it, then listened to it again and again, I actually I kind of I was surprised because I found a love story, and I found a love story in a way was Catra. I didn't realize until it was later. It was like you're a love story to yourself in some weird way because
Mm-hmm.
we have relationships with people, and people, if we put invest too much time, energy, and effort into them, I guess the Alanine side of things, we put too much
Yeah.
energy and effort into them, then we're giving away way too much of our own power and too much of
Exactly.
my experiences are judged by them, right? So honestly, the people who I've sent this book to more than anything, they're part of a different type of program. I call it the graduate
Yeah.
school program, right? It's another type of personal growth
Yeah.
program because I saw it as a love story. When I saw part of the chapters and how many things you accomplished with a partner who was ride or die, man, and you just
Yep.
did so many things together, and then it wasn't, and
Yep.
then it was gone. And I feel like when I read this book, Catra, when I read those portions of your life, that when the ultras remained, the resilience remained. And what I realized is, wait a minute, while she was sharing all these miles and these great efforts, really, She was carrying. She was doing so much of the heavy lifting, and it didn't become clear to me until later. So I'm not trying to be opaque about it, but
No.
you describe in the relationship, this book, I was shocked and I loved it. And uh, I'm pretty sure that's why I really love that you, that you put it out. I love that you put it out there, man,
Yeah,
because
you got it. Because I mean,
yeah,
my mom used to say when she was like, you don't have to tell everybody everything about you. And you don't have to say you were a drug addict. And I go, yes, I do. I go, it's going to help somebody. And it did. And my sister who passed away, who was a heroin addict, she used to always ask me, how did you do it? How did you get sober? How did you, because she tried so many times before she finally died. And I said, you got to find something you're
yeah,
passionate about, and that's truly it. You have to get rid of everybody, which I did. And you're lonely. You're going to be alone because you cannot hang out with those people. You cannot go to those places. You cannot do those things that you did before because you're going to end up back where you were and you're not going to go forward. And I said, you got to find something you're passionate about, because she was really so impressed with my running. And I go, you just got to find something you're passionate about. I said, I don't know what to tell you, you have to find your own passion, and what she never did. And a lot of those people never do. And that's why they end up, if you continue on in life, you're either going to end up in jail or die doing drugs, or alcohol, get in an accident, you're going to end up in jail or dead. Doesn't matter. I mean, if it's golfing, if it's spending time with, rescuing animals or your kids, or just something else that you're passionate about that makes you feel good, that makes you have confidence, and that's important. Running has given me confidence. I didn't have no confidence, after I got clean and sober, I had nobody. And I was like, started running, and that built my confidence up. And the more things I did, I was like, you know, looking back, when I first got sober, there's no way I would have thought I ever would be doing what I've done. But the bottom line is I had to be that addict, drug addict, alcoholic, to become who I am, because I would have never been this strong, amazing, whatever I've done, because I didn't have to overcome. It's like I overcame so much to be who I am now, and it was meant to be, So I would have never ran. Hated running. There's no way I would have ever had done this had I not found it through getting sober and finding running.
all right, but you're still doing it, and you're doing it a lot. At what moment in time, how many years ago, when did it become a thing that it's all you did and it's what you did all the time? So either running or in service to the community and
Yeah, from the
other.
get-go. From the get-go, from the
Really?
time I started racing. Yeah, I just became so much a part of me. Like I said, it made me have confidence, and it gave me direction. Like immediately after I did my first 10K and I got that flyer for the marathon, I started training from there, and I never stopped training. I was constantly, and that's who I am. I tell people now, because they're like, how do you keep going? I go, I have to, because of my personality. I have anxiety, ADHD, and all that. I have to be signed up for races, so I have something to work towards all the time. And
Okay.
it's just my
Okay.
personality. It's just my personality. I'm like, I gotta be, signing up for the next thing. I have things that I'm looking forward to where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I get to train like this, because I love the training part of it. And one day when I can't race like I do, I just love getting outside. I love the mountains. I love being out in nature. It's like every day is a new experience. What are you going to see today? Some cool animal, like mountain lion, deer, bobcat, whatever, bear. It's like you see something cool. Like, tomorrow I'm going to go drive up so I can see all the leaves changing with my little dog Forrester. We're going to go do a 10-mile run. I'm like, oh, I have to go up to look at all the aspens. They're changing right now. It's like, and running brings me to these places, running, hiking, and where I live, I mean, there's so much to do, so many amazing places, and year-round running. I mean, I can't get up in the mountains during the
In
winter
Bishop.
because of the snow. Yeah, but down low, we have all
Good.
kinds of little mountains that we can run, and hills. Just can't get up high. I'll go up high and wear snowshoes and go on like the road that's covered in snow and go up and enjoy that.
Were you counting the 100s as you approached 100s, or how much, if at all?
Only so towards the end when I was like, oh, I wonder how many I have. At some point, somebody said, "Oh, you're getting pretty close," and I'm like, I don't even know. And I was like, I have like 85. So at that point, when I realized that at 85, then I didn't know. I was just, just doing whatever. I just like doing hundreds.
Every so far, the people I've spoken with, we're at their ultra sign up and I'm just picking out pieces and talking about them. But because you've done everything and so much all the time, I thought I'd try to pull out something a little different. So how about this one? I pulled up looks like 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 races that I don't even know what they all are, but they are the ones you've done many, many times. So that would include, I'm going to pull up a little slide here in a second. Javelina, it looks like,
10 times.
15
10
starts,
finishes.
12 finishes. Hurt 100. That's when I've heard people talk about hurt, like that's, gnarly
It's
branches
hard.
and roots and
Yep.
13
I'd like to
of
do that
starts
one more
and finish
time. I'd like to finish that one more time.
Okay. San Diego. Here, let me do this. See if you can see it. And there it is.
Yep. God, yeah, Quad Dipsy this year. I'll be the first woman to get 25 finishes.
Ha 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 ha. All right.
Yep.
So
then I'm quitting that one. Because it's too hard to get to living in the Eastern Sierra now. It's only a 28-mile race, but it's a gnarly 28 miles.
Why talk about choices when you started, there weren't many 100-mile races. So it's easy to imagine, Catra, that when you started, like you would do some and you would go back and do them again, because there weren't that many. Now you could easily do 100-mile races and never repeat one.
Yes.
You could do that, right?
Absolutely.
So talk about that. When you started, you did a bunch of these many times. You did Javelina a bunch of times, Hurt 100.
Yep.
What makes you go back to a race?
The community and the race director, the people that are part of that community. Like Javelina, I can't miss because that's my party race. Like I love dressing up. I always wear a costume when I race. So this year, for the first time, I'm doing the night run because I'm volunteering there. So instead of doing I'm over the 100-miler because I've finished it, got my 10-year buckle. So the 100K is something that I've done a few times. But I was like, you know what? I think this is last year. I'm like, I'm going to just run the night run and volunteer all through the day until I do my night run and then volunteer after I finish it because it's just one loop, the 22 mile. And I go, I want to work at the party at the start finish where when the runners come in and they do the turnaround, they got the DJ going and we hype them up to go back out. So that's what I'm doing this year. So I'm doing the short run. So it's just the community. That's what I'm saying. It's part of the community and when I first started doing that race, it wasn't like it is now. It's huge. Like it is a massive, everybody wants to do Javelina because of the whole vibe, But back then, when I first did it the first time, I don't know, there might have been 60 runners doing it. And it was like some picnic tables. That was where the start finish was. And then they had a couple of, aid stations out there with pop up and, there was couple people working it. No, it wasn't like it is now. Like one of the aid stations has a disco and a DJ at night. And it's so. But yeah,
is that your party? You said that.
That's my party. That's my Halloween party every year. So because I like dressing up, I like being in a costume. I'm going to have many costumes this year. So you'll have to stay tuned to see that. But yeah, I won the costume contest. I think 7 times.
My goodness.
So that was always my goal was to try to win the costume contest. And then San Diego is just I like those trails. I like, that area, it's after I had to hike the Pacific Crest Trail, when I started doing that the race again, I was like, wow, this is so cool. Cause I had hiked through that area and it's a whole different feel when you're running or hiking through there. And I just, that race, it's not an easy race. And same with her. I did it the first several years they had it. And it was the first year they had it, there was only I think there was only 2 women that finished, me and Monica. back in those days, I
Wow.
believe. And there was only like 7
Okay.
finishers. There was maybe 7 people that finished. So when I did that race, when I finished it, it was 2001, I think was the first one they had. That was a big deal because people were like, "Oh my God, like put me on a whole nother level," because they're like, "You did hurt, you finished that race." Like people couldn't believe, because that was a nutso race. When that came on to the ultra sign, well, it wasn't even ultra sign up back then, but
Same.
when that came on, people were like, "Wow," because they heard horror stories. Like the people that lived in Hawaii that developed that course, they always trained on that, and they came up with and they were making it as a race. They called it Hard Rock by the Sea because it was as hard as Hard Rock. But there was people that have finished Hard Rock 5 and 10 times at that point, and they said this is harder than Hard Rock because they only gave you 36 hours to finish, and Hard Rock gave you 48. But the amount of climbing, even though you're not at elevation, it's roots, rocks, slippery. If it rains, it's a whole nother thing. Humid, so humid. Like when I ran that for the first time, I'm like, why am I wet? Is my bladder thing leaking? Is my water? People are like, it's humid. And I go, oh my God, I'm soaking wet. It's like a whole nother level. But yeah, I keep going back to these same races because of the community and the people that are there. It's just like, I enjoy it. So, but my goal now is to try to do more, like, especially with next year, I'm going back to finish, I'll go back to get my 5th Moab next year, and I'm going back to Arizona Monster already because I need to finish that 300. But there's another 300 miler I want to do, and a couple other 200 milers, like the Oregon 200. People have got on my radar, and I looked at it, and I want to do that. So instead of keep repeating the same 200s, and next year I'm going to volunteer at all the destination trail races and just do the Moab, but do other races because I want to start doing other ones. It's like, God, there's so many, like, don't be a repeat. And, you get to the point where you get comfortable doing the same thing. It's like, no, I like being like where I haven't been, like new courses, new scenery. So,
Yeah,
and I
but
do want to mention one race for people that are over 50 is the Grand Masters. It's in Arizona, and I've done that like probably 7 times now. But it's a race you have to be 50 years old or older on race day. They give you like 48 hours to finish the 100 miler. So I've been hyping that up for my friends that are now turning in their 50s that haven't run 100 because they're slower and they're afraid of these cutoffs. And even the 100K, they give you 48 hours. So you could go and nap and still finish. And it's looped courses. And it's in
Littlefield, Arizona.
Yep. So, and I think that's great that they have a race for people that are over 50, and they want everybody to be able to finish. So it's 250 milers basically, but you do an inner loop. So you do an inner loop. So you go out and then you get to like the second aid station, then you do this inner loop and then you start heading out. So it's 250-mile loops, but multiple aid stations out there, and you end up back at the start finish area at mile 50. So what it's like you learn the loop on your first time around and then you go back out, and it's definitely doable. The weather could be cold, it could be warm, you can get a little bit of both, but it's, they wanted to develop a race that other people can finish, as you get older into, and I've met a lot of people doing their first 100-miler that are in their 50s out there. And there's been a lot of 60-year-olds that feel like, oh, I could do this, or, just wanting to do 100K. And they can even walk it. There's a lot of people that are just, hikers, and they go out and they do the 100K, and they can walk that in 48 hours with taking a nap.
Sure. Yeah, you're right. You did 7 of those, and all the 100-miler, and of course, you finished all of them. Okay.
Thanks for telling me.
Thank you.
I'm doing number 8 this year. So I guess I have to do 2 more to get number 10 over there. But no, I think that will be one of those races that I keep doing, because the older I get, I could still do it and still finish. You know what I mean? Because they have had 70 plus years old out there. So yeah, one of my friends, he was in his 70s. He recently passed away last year, but he finished it. He was like 75, so it's doable.
There you have it. Well, that's why I asked, why would you go back? But it really sounds like, honestly, if you just from a cold data perspective, when I combed it all out, my gut says that, well, when you started them, there weren't that many.
No,
Now
there
there are.
wasn't. There
And so
wasn't.
now
Yes.
you can get your satisfied, you can get satisfied, you can get your 10 in and get the 1,000-mile,
Yeah.
buckle, whatever it is, and do
Yeah.
more.
When you get close, you're kind of like, oh, I should just do a couple more. It's like because you're getting
Of course.
close to
Of course you
getting
would.
that. But like I said, there's so many. There's so many to do. There's ones that I want to do. And the Grand Masters, I always like to use that as my first 100 of the year. It's a good training run. And now that I'm doing Arizona Monster again next year, they also have a race, but it's for all ages called Flat Top Mesa in the same area, but up on this mesa. So I'm signed up for both of those February, March, because those will be training 100s for the Arizona Monster. So that way I don't have to go out in the freezing cold here and do training 100-mile runs, because I tend to do that for the 200s. I'll like a training run. So, but yeah, so I'll do those two races before Arizona Monster as training runs.
And the Monster this year, because you pull after 100, you said 100 miles, you just were like, nope, you could tell it wasn't.
My knee. I injured it 2 weeks before the race, and I should have not started. But I was already like, you know what? I'm already in. I'm going to see how it does. It could either be fine or not be fine. And it wasn't fine. And then it took 4 more months for it to completely heal after that. And I was like, it was swollen after it happened. And I was still running on it, though, mind you, because I'm like, oh, no, it's 2 weeks. I still got to get some more miles in here and there. And it was going down a ski field, which is very technical and slippery, that I was actually with Forrester, and he was flying down, my little weenie dog, and he's fast, and he was just flying it. I was trying to catch him, and I had trekking poles, and it's just I stepped wrong. And, all the rocks, things happened,
You have the energy of a 40-year-old for sure. You are as
Thank you.
articulate and expert as someone who's done this 150 years. So when you combine those two things, pretty amazing, actually. The amount of the resource you represent and the resource who you are is pretty amazing. So with all of that, let's go back to our 60-year-old woman who's just like hasn't done trails yet. She ran Boston, she ran blah, blah, blah. But she's kind of like, she doesn't really want to hang up her shoes, does she? She's going to start doing trails, and now she's going to start doing ultras, right? So this is that person.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that woman.
Okay.
So when you're going to talk to her, let's talk to her about how she learns to know the difference between being injured and just being in pain. Because it hurts to be on your feet.
Yeah, you're going to be sore. So what I would tell her is, so she's coming from a road background, which it beats your body up for sure. Transitioning into a trail running, you're going to be using a lot of different muscles. So you're not going to be getting that overuse injuries like you would running on the road, doing your speed workout, because now you're moving your body different directions. You're using, different muscle groups. So it's important, I always say too, especially in your 60s, late 50s, 60s, heading in that direction, that you need to maintain muscle mass. So it's easy for us to wither away because we start losing our muscle. So we got to continue working out in the gym, continue doing weight-bearing exercises, lifting weights, especially for women, because we tend to, our calcium levels can get low, and we can get all these different, women stuff, things that happen to our joints and, things like that from going through menopause. So you got to definitely do some sort of weight workout. And that's really important to cross train, because if you just continue to run, you're going to eventually get injured. And I see a lot of friends that are just runners and they don't do any other workouts, and they do tend to get injured as they get older because they're not doing things to strengthen, their knees, their core. And it's really important to have a strong core as we get older, because as you see, like a lot of those runners, they get weak glutes and they start lifting as you get older. And that's a sign of weak glutes. So you got to focus on all that area. So I would tell her, make sure you're working out in the gym, doing some sort of weight training, and lifting weights is really important. And getting out on the trail, like a lot of women are afraid to go out by themselves on a trail. They're scared animals, because that's my biggest question I get is like, aren't you afraid out there? I'm like, no. I've been doing this all by myself since I started running. Like if I waited for a guy or somebody to get into running, I would have never done it because I started this all by myself. So I
Right.
go, no. I go, there are precautions to take. Usually weirdos are not going to be on the trail. Like you don't hear too many stories of people getting assaulted on a mountain trail when you're training. That's not. But carry pepper spray and carry a knife. And those are the two things I carry. And I always started carrying those when I had Truman in case another dog tried to attack him. And I started carrying the knife because I've seen 16 mountain lions, but none of them tried to attack me. But I go, you know what? A mountain lion, if they're going to attack you, you got to fight them off. So I got a knife and I got mace. That's the best I can do. I know I'm in their territory and they really don't want anything to do with me. I'm not afraid of them. Never been afraid when I've seen them. I've just been like, wow, there's a mountain lion, but then they run away. It's like I've seen one up a tree in the middle of the night above my head with my boyfriend. He goes,
Sure.
look, there's a bobcat. And I'm like, Phil, that's a mountain lion. It was above our head near our house. And I was like, wow,
My
these are
goodness.
cool things you see when you're out doing stuff. So anyways, you're usually not going to see a mountain lion. So they see you all the time. And I try to tell people that because they get scared. They're like, there's mountain lions. I'm scared. And I'm like, they see you. They're around you all the time. You just don't know that. I go, so don't be scared. Just be, have safety precautions. If you run where there's no reception, always carry a spot device, which is an inReach or something where you can communicate if something happens. The great thing now is with our iPhone, it connects to satellite. So I can be out in the wilderness, just like with my spot device. Phil watches me when I'm out doing like a big 25, 30-mile loop and he needs to pick me up. You can watch my tracker to see where I'm at. And I can push a button if something happens. But you have to remember, running on trails, if you need a rescue, it could take 6 to 8 hours for the search and rescue to get to you. So when you're running on trail, always carry some essentials. Carry a bivy sack, like they're little Mylar sleeping bags. They're very small. They give them to us at our 200s because you have to carry required gear. But carry that, carry a minimal first aid kit. Like I said, carry a knife, carry a lighter or something that you can make a fire if you got stuck out there. So that's really important because for years, I never carried anything like that. And living in the mountains, it's like you don't have reception. You got to self-arrest. Nobody, if you can self-arrest, that's, better. People think SAR's coming right away. These people on Mount Whitney that need to get a rescue. Well, if the weather's bad, they're not coming for a day or two. They can't get the helicopter to you. So, and I've watched friends help people up in these places. So I'm not trying to scare them off, but I'm like, you got to be prepared, And there's a lot of, running clubs. So they would maybe want to join a trail running club, and usually trail running clubs, they're going to be for all abilities. They have the faster pace group, the slower pace group. So that's, nowadays we have so many, things you can look on the internet and find a group, they're everywhere. Like back in my day, they didn't, but I always talk from my experience that I'm lucky to be alive because the amount of things I did out in the wilderness before there was any tracking device, before I carried a phone, I didn't even carry a tent when I was doing these like yo-yos on the John Muir Trail. I didn't even have a tent. Okay. If I got stuck in weather, I was going to be in trouble. Like I am so into having essential stuff with me now because I feel like I was like a cat with 9 lives and I survived many times. So, but yeah, carrying, make sure you notify somebody where you're at. These are just important basic things, being out in the wilderness and running on trails. So once you have all that down, because you can get hurt and you got to get out where you're at. Even if you're on a 5-mile run, if you break your leg, it's hard to get out. 5 miles is going to take a long time you're going to be crawling if you can't get reception. So, but yeah, so in proper shoes, and it's like I said, there's so much information on it. And there is even, Facebook groups of runners over 60, there's so much information now. So, but I would say it's a lot to the woman over 60 that once you, go, start training on the trail within a month, it's going to be nothing. Like in the beginning, sure, you're afraid, you're scared, like I'm going to fall, once you fall a few times, you're okay. It's like, that's part of trail running. You're going to fall, and you just get back up, and carry food. So really important when you're On the road, you can go out for 10 miles because you're going to be done fast. When you're on the trail, that 10 miles is going to be a lot slower, depending upon how much you're climbing and whatever. I could be out there at 10 miles, depending upon where I'm going. It's going to take me 4 hours, to go 10 miles. On the road, it's like I'm doing 4.5 miles an hour. It's like going to take a lot longer, especially if you're taking pictures and dance videos. It can take a lot
Right.
longer. But yeah, just have the proper gear. And like I said, I know a lot of women are a little leery of being by themselves. Sign up for a short trail race. If they're just new to getting into trail running, maybe sign up for a 5K trail race. So that way they're around people and they don't have to go out and train. They've already been training for their marathon. Maybe they could even do the half marathon in a trail race as their first, out of the road running community. And they'll find their community there, and that will help them so they feel more confident. And I know as women get older, they're a little more fearful of doing stuff like that by themselves. And I always try to, help women get confident. I go, just, as long as you let somebody know where you go. I mean, we have our phones. Like I said, that satellite thing is amazing. Like pretty soon we don't need to even carry an inReach, but I carry both and I always will as a backup because what if I smash my phone, until.
Sure.
So, yeah. But yeah, iPhones connect right to that satellite and you can text. I mean, you can text through 911 and they'll be able to see where you're at. It's just amazing. It's just another tool for search and rescue to be able to find you.
So she's taken lots of notes by this point.
Yeah.
In this last 12 minutes, you just gave more information that she's was able to glean from the internet for a long time. So she's like,
Yeah.
all the notes on, right? So here now she's like, okay, Catra, I get it. Now you're right. While you were talking, she says to you later, I signed up for my first race. I'm going to do a 30K. Now, I've never run that far before, but I'm going to run a 30K trail race, she said. Now, she's been training a couple times, and while she's in training, she's been up in the hills, and she kind of like, she fell, and she got back up, like you said, but she's like, her knee hurts a little bit, and she learns the word niggle. Somebody told her about the
Yep,
word niggle. Like, oh, it's a little thing. It's a thing, right? So
Yeah.
now she's coming back to you, and she's, okay, Catra, I'm still not clear exactly. When I'm out there running, how do I know? How can I know in my brain, like, what's the difference between just, being sore and being in pain and being in the hurt cave that she read about? What's the difference between that and like being injured? I don't know if I trust myself enough, she might say, to know the difference. So how would I know?
Well, when you're injured, so when you're fatigued or sore, it's a different feeling. So your muscles are going to hurt. But if it's like something where you can't bend your leg, that could be an injury. Ice it. It could just be soreness because your knees aren't used to going on the trail. But to me, it's going to be much easier on your body running on a trail than running on the road. So you would have probably had to feel those things. Your muscles are going to be more sore than anything. And that's going to be normal because you're using different muscles. Unless you've already been training in a gym and you've already lifted weights all the time, it's not going to be much different than what you've been doing. So if you can't put weight on something, that is definitely going to be that's like an injury. So that would be a way to know.
All right.
Yeah.
I heard you. She says, you know what? I'm going to tell you a secret. She says, I'm out here doing trail running because I learned how to activate my glutes. She said, I thought that was a joke a long time ago, but I figured it out. And now when I'm out there running, I feel like I'm working out my butt and I love it. And I feel strong about it. And I feel good about it. And, but I will go take you up on that. I think I will start to lift some weights. But really, she says, the reason I kind of want to get out in the trails is because I have dogs and they run on the street, but I'm kind of afraid for them. It's not the same in the urban setting. People want to touch my dogs all the time. I just don't like it. And I wish my dogs could be free. So I'm going to start running on the trails with my dog. So I saw little pictures of you, she says, and you've got dachshunds, she says. And she says, what? Tell us about the dachshunds. Tell us about the one that's
Truman.
the true man, the one that's the hero of them all. But take us from true man to Forrester. Walk her through. She wants to know. I want to hear.
Yeah.
I'm so glad Forrester was talking previously. And, he's
now
like,
he got
don't
quiet.
forget to talk about me.
I know.
Like, don't forget to talk about me.
So Truman, I was introduced to wiener dogs from an ex-boyfriend and his family. So he grew up having wiener dogs, and it was actually when I got on drugs, it was with him and his family, but he's sober now too. We're still friends. But it was his family that introduced me to wiener dogs, because they had this old wiener dog that was like 17 and her name was Twinkie, but I was actually afraid of her. So that was the first wiener dog I ever met. She was blind and she was deaf, but she would try to bite me every time I'd walk in the house. Like she could feel where I was at. I was afraid of dogs. Let me tell you, backtrack. When I was little, I got attacked by the neighbor's German Shepherd, and then another neighbor had a Saint Bernard, and it was friendly, but I didn't know that it would knock me down, and I was terrified because I was a small child. Early on, I was afraid of dogs, and then we had a poodle, and she bit me in the toe, and so after that, I was like, as growing up, I was always afraid of dogs. So we didn't have, that was only a dog we had, Candy, and so I didn't grow up with dogs. So then once me and Jason broke up, so Twinkie Wiener died, who was deaf and blind and biting my ankles. And then we got a rescue. The family got a rescue, and her name was Dee Dee Wiener. And I became obsessed with her. So that was my forming of my love of wiener dogs. So once me and him broke up, then he's like, well, I'll pay half for a wiener dog for you. So I got a wiener dog puppy, Oscar, and he was my first wiener dog. So then after he passed away, I got Rocky Ridge was my next wiener dog, and that was a rescue. And he passed away, and I was like, I don't want to get another wiener dog right now. I'm just going to do this rescue thing. So I volunteered to do rescue along with my roommate at the time, Jerry, who had just retired, and he didn't realize how obsessed he was with Rocky. After he passed away, he was really sad. He goes, yeah. I go, hey, Jerry, do you think we could do this wiener dog rescue? I found there's a wiener dog rescue and we can foster. And I go, I don't want one right now, but we'll foster. And he goes, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, let's do that. So we both agreed, because I lived in his house, that we would foster. So the first one that came, he was a foster failure. He goes, I don't want to let this one go. So we had her for like a month, and we were training her and getting her all settled so we could write up a bio on her. And he goes, what do I do? And I go, Jerry, if you want her, I go adopt her. So he did. So then we had several more come in, because I'm like, I'm not getting attached to any of these. So I was out of town, and I kept telling him, I want a dapple when I get another wiener dog. And he kept hearing me say that word dapple, and that was like a spotted wiener dog. So I was out doing a mountain run in Yosemite, and the foster messaged him, and she's like, we got a bunch of wiener dogs. We got a mom, a grandma, and 2 sets of pups, and this little boy dog. So they came with all the dogs, and he goes, which one's that back there? And she goes, oh, that's the boy dog. He's the Isabella Dapple. And he goes, okay, that one. So he was secretly knowing that he was like, she wants a dapple, and helping me find one. He was 6.5. So I came home, fearful dog. I'm going to try to make the story shorter. He was a very fearful dog, afraid of everything. I was not ever planning on keeping him, but I wanted to get him so he wasn't so afraid. He came from a 22 dog hoarder, and she had to get rid of a bunch of her dogs, because you're not allowed to have that many dogs. And so she chose him. And he was fixed. He was beautiful. Coloring was like unique. And so I couldn't even walk him on a leash. She had never been outside walking on a leash. She lived inside a house underneath a bed, hiding from the other dogs. So he would freeze up. We called it, he would lock down. So one day I was like, after like a few days working with him, and, I was sleeping with him, letting him sleep with me. I was like, you know what? I'm going to drive over to the Mission Peak trailhead with him, and I'm going to take him off leash, because he doesn't really walk on a leash. You're dragging him. And I'm going to just start running along and see if he follows me. So I took him off leash, and I looked down, and he was right with me, and he was running, because I'm like, okay, we'll run really easy, going by the cows, going by the people. He was not afraid. He was like right there with me. And I was like, wow. He's like not running after a squirrel. He's not chasing anything. He's not doing anything. So I did that a few times. And one day I went to because I volunteered for East Bay Regional Parks, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go pick up trash along one of these trails that was near Alameda Creek. So I took him with me, and, he was around people and other dogs, and I could tell that he was fearful of other dogs. He was just like ignoring them. But he followed me, and I was having him off leash, like from day one. He wasn't really on leash.
Wow.
And so I got him all trained up, worked with him, and I'm like, great. He's confident now. He's building his confidence, because my roommate had his dachshund, Sky, and that was a very important thing. They said, yeah, he needs a companion to make him become more confident, another dog. And so she was perfect because she was showing him the ropes, and she was younger, but he was 6.5, and he hadn't seen the world at all. So I was getting ready to do his bio, and I had written it up, and I was like, oh my God, wait a minute. Like after a month, I'm like, I think I want to adopt him. And I was like, Jerry, I think I want to adopt him. He goes, you should do it. And so that was how it started. So we started running together pretty much. I mean, we were already running together, but I was like, you know what? He's going to go 10K. So I just started ramping his miles up. Never did I thought he would be able to go, like I just kept setting up little goals. And I was like, could he do 20 miles? And we would ramp up. We were doing 15. I'm like, well, 5 more. Let's see how he does. If he starts slowing down, I'll turn around and bring him back. No, 20 was no problem. 22, no problem. 26, no problem. And I'm like, really? Can he run a 50K? Yeah. And it was just building up. I mean, we built up in a couple of years. He was already 6.5. So he wasn't a puppy, which was good. And he changed him. It was really funny because he was a little chunky when I first got him. Because I looked back, the only time when memories come up when I first got him, and I was like, he was a little chunkabunkka because he had got down. He weighed like 12 pounds, and his running weight was always like 9.6, 9.8, throughout the rest of his life. So I was like, yeah, because people were like, he's too skinny. And then I had, of course, people telling me, you can't run with those dogs. Their backs, you're injuring them. How dare you, getting all these haters on the internet. And I was like, and then he was already doing it. He was getting ready to do a 50K. He was already running 20 miles all the time. And I was like, I'm going to get him an x-ray, get him a spine x-ray and see how it's going. So my vet in Fremont was like, yeah, he's fine. You can run with him. He goes, and every vet I've ever met said, these are the poster children for back injuries, for because they're notorious for that. But they go, you know what? Everything we learn is they're like making us think that they can't run, but being low to the ground, they can. And they're meant to be hunters anyways. So it's the jumping that injures them. They're launching off of beds, launching off of furniture. You just have to have the little steps in there.
Yeah.
So he was x-rayed. He was fine. He was given the green light. Let him do whatever he wants, And so I proved to everybody he could run that far. Then he did his 50Ks, and he was always training with me, 26, 28 miles, no problem, every other week. And I would only let him run like long every other week. But there was weeks where he clocked 80 miles in a week,
Wow.
And it never faltered.
Wow.
But the thing with him, he always stayed kind of behind me. He was never in the front of me kind of guy. He was, because his confidence was being with me. Like he was not, he was not a dog that pulled. So anyways, we were together for 10 years, and he had congestive heart failure, which we already had a murmur when I think the second year I had him, they found that. And then it progressively, as you get older, it gets worse. But it had nothing to do with his running. Like my vets all here in Bishop said, he lived so much longer because of what he was doing. But his final year, they were like, he had a cardiologist too. And they're like, he's probably not going to live another year. You got like 9 months probably with him. He lived 14 months, and they were saying 9 months. And he was still like, he was on medication and stuff. And like the last month of his life, 2 months, they're like, can't go up to altitude. He can't do this, can't do that. So finally I decided, well, we're going to do bucket list stuff. So I'm like, I'm taking him up to altitude. If he dies up there, he's going to die up in a, in a place that he loves. And I asked my vet, I said, I'm going to take him out on this boat up at 10,000 feet. He's never been on a boat. And so we're going to do like, a little motorboat ride at Lake Sabrina. We're doing a bucket list thing because they were waiting for me. They were like, you need to make the decision to let him go because he was getting progressively worse. And so we did all these things, and I'm like, well, he's not dying. He's not dying. So finally, he was having all these seizures. And the day he died, he actually had a stroke. And then my vet came over, and that was when I realized, yeah, it's time to let him go because he wasn't coming back. So with that said, I know this is a long story. I had a sidekick come, and she works with animals and she works with people. Truman was alive, so she came and she was communicating with him, and she did not know me at all, and so she was telling me things that there's no way she would have known, and it was like him telling her stuff. And she kept bringing up this name. She goes, forest. And I go, oh, he's talking about the forest. Yeah, we run in the forest. She goes, no. She goes, I don't I'm not picturing that. She goes, I can't see what he's saying, but he keeps saying forest, but he's not showing me trees. He's not showing me stuff. So me and my friend was here, and I go, that's my next dog's name. That's my next dog's name. I was thinking to myself. And then I go, am I going to have another dog? Am I going to get another dog? She goes, yeah, he's dark in color with white. And so
Wow.
white, which I didn't know. And so I had been talking to a breeder, and she had called me the week before, and I said, well, no, I'm not going to be ready for a dog. And I don't want him. At that time, I wanted a female. And I'm like, no, I already got a female that I adopted, because I have two others that I adopted through the same rescue. And I said, no, I'm going to be ready in November. So call me in November, or email or text me with pictures of the puppies that you're getting in November. Because I told her what I go, I don't know what I want, but I want a male and a short hair, maybe a dapple. That's all I said. Well, he passed away, and 11 days later, she sends me a text with pictures of 3 boy puppies. And I'm like, didn't I tell her November? Like, why would that happen? Like, she knew November, and I messaged her back, and I said, I'm not ready for puppies right now. She goes, oh, well, this is not my puppies. She goes, this is my cousin's, my aunt's puppies. And I just thought, because you wanted a boy, they have these 3 boys. And then I'm looking at him, and I see Forrester right off the bat, and he had this heart-shaped patch on him. And I was like, Truman was my soul dog. And I was like, he has a heart on him. Maybe he had meant to have him. And she was not supposed to call me now or communicate with me until November. So then I call her aunt, Patty, up, and we're talking. And then I said something about my running, and she goes, oh, my daughter does these 200s. And I go, I do too. So then she mentioned her daughter's name, and I said, I don't know her, but I bet you your daughter knows me. So I go, okay, I'll come look at the puppies. And so we flew, my boyfriend flew us to Southern California, and her daughter did know me and had read my book. And so it was this whole weird connection how I ended up with Forrester. I wanted to get a rescue. I was never planning on purchasing like really a puppy. And I felt like that Truman sent him to me because of all the stuff that happened. And so now here we get another puppy. And I'm like, it's probably not going to be a run. Like Truman was a runner. Truman was the one and only. So Forrester has never walked from day one. Anywhere he goes, he's shooting across the house. He's shooting over here. He's shooting. The dog does not know how to freaking walk.
Wow.
He pulls me. Like, he pulls me. And I was like, this dog is a nut. He's a freaking nut. He literally, like I said, he doesn't run. Like, when he comes to the kitchen for his meals, he runs. He does not walk anywhere. He doesn't walk. Like, when he's walking, I have to have him on a leash, but he's pulling me. So so he's up to 26 miles now. He's 3 years old, and he's, they told me, right, like, do not run him until he's a year old, until we fix him. And my vet was really adamant, and he's an ultra runner, my vet. And I was like, I'm not. I go, but Joel, he runs. I go, I have him off leash. He's running. I'm not running with him. He's running away from me. And he goes, yes, just don't run with him. So he is definitely a runner. So he is training to do a 50K at some point. He was born with what's called luxating patella. So a lot of people, when they're watching him run, they're like, oh, there's something wrong with him, his knee. And I go, no, he does. I go, he was born with it, but it's not affecting him. It's not painful for him. So when you see dogs skipping, you see it a lot in Chihuahuas. They get what's called luxating patella. So when they're skipping, they're just pulling their leg up to put their knee back in place. So when you see a dog doing that and they're skipping, it's called luxating patella. And it shows up exactly, and for him, it was exactly at 4 months. So it's it's breeding, and not like, you can't ever breed like, I had to notify them right away. Don't breed those parents ever again with any other dogs, because he had it. And that means other puppies will get it.
Right.
Something in breeding. So I felt like I was meant to have him, because I know, like, maybe later in life I'll have to have surgery, and maybe the people that would have got him or got him as a puppy, they wouldn't be able to afford it or take care of him the way that I have, and knowing that he runs. And my vet said, actually, his running has strength and everything. He has little muscles around everything. So he's better off than a dog that has luxating patella that doesn't exercise. So yeah, he will be an ultra runner at some point. And for now, though, we just enjoy going along. Like, the guy is faster than me. Forrester always stayed with me. So Forrester was as fast as I was going to be, but I can't. Like, I had a friend run with him. I go, I want to see how fast he can go. My friend did an 8-minute mile with him. I can't even run a mile anymore. And he was ahead of my friend the whole way. And I was like, oh my God, he's so fast. So in last year, so I sent him to training because he wanted to chase everything. So I felt like how we were talking, taking your dog onto a trail, you should have them trained so they don't take off. And he would take off on me and I couldn't catch him. So I ended up getting him a e-collar that has vibrate and buzzing. It does have shock, but low level. Like, I could put it on me and it's just like an irritation. And I have it very low, goes up to 99. And for the record, his is on 9, but we never use that anymore. He doesn't like the bell. He doesn't like the vibration part. I put it on for safety so he won't take off, but I don't have to use it now. But when we go on mountain trails, because I let him go off on his own and he always catches back up, I have it for his safety. But we can run together off leash. So it wasn't until January that we were able to run off leash where he listens. And now I don't even have to have it on. And I go, wait, Forrester. I just have to say, wait. And he stops because he's faster than me and he'll wait for me to catch up and then go. So yeah, when you're running off leash with your dog, please make sure they're trained.
And I don't know if they existed with when Truman was around, but what's a dachshund derby?
So those have been around forever for entertainment purposes. So Truman did do one dachshund derby, and he didn't like it. He didn't like being around other dogs. He was scared. So, and Forrester, I thought, okay, so we did that once, and he came in like last. Like, it wasn't a thing for him. And we did it wrong because I had my friend Jerry down at the other end, and he didn't want to leave me. So we got it figured out. So fast forward. So I was like, I should put Forrester in these. I don't know how he'll do. I know he's fast. I don't know if he'll try to attack the other dogs because he's very like nippy. Like, well, he doesn't bite other dogs, but he's very barky. You know,
right,
like
okay.
Big dogs, he's fearful and he does a fearful bark because he was attacked as a puppy. So we're still working on that. So anyways, we went to this dachshund. Huntington Beach has this big wiener fest. So that was his first race that he did. And he came in second. You have to come in first to go to the next heat. But I was just like so impressed that he was like, you know. So, and he did they had 2 heats. And so he did 2 heats and came in second on both heats. But I was like, this is a thing. And it was on sand too. Mind you, it was on the beach. So then I had to write this letter to get him into this Wiener Internationals. I'm like, are you kidding me? I have to write a letter, like to get an essay to get my dog in. Oh, let me backtrack. So I think you could win the lottery at Western States better than you could get in this Wiener Dog Festival that I was in. So he was in the lottery, and there was 1,000 dachshunds that applied for, I forgot how many slots they had. It was like 64.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so he got into that. So then this next one is a big thing because it's at this racetrack. So it's in between the horse racing. So they have Wiener Dog race, horse race, Wiener Dog race, horse race. So it's this whole thing. And they make a brochure with all the Wiener dogs like at the horse racing. Like, so you could, yeah, it's so cute. So anyways, his race was like way later in the evening, and it was just like all day waiting for him to go, you know, and it was fun. So out of the gate though, the dog next to him crossed in front of him, and I have these slow motion pictures that my friend Andy took because he was like further down, and it was a long track, which is good because he likes going far. But she knocked him over, and he was like doing the handstand, flipping sideways and everything else, but he still came in like third. But you had to come in first to go to the next heat. But out of the gate, he was like right there, like, and she flipped him over. So he didn't win. So I was like, all that, and he got a flip. I go, but now we know what we're in for. So we want to do more of these because some of those dogs are freaking fast. I'm just like, whoa, you know, and we train with his ball. So I'm standing down the other end holding the ball.
Yeah.
And so it makes him want to run fast. But yeah, it's fun. It's entertaining. So, but he will do an ultra. Yeah, I mean, he's more into the running on the trails. You can hear him barking again. He's like, let me up here because he's downstairs.
I'm so glad we covered that. So, you know,
Yes.
people love our dogs. We love our dogs. And so.
And he's been x-rayed. So I have 2 other dachshunds, as you know. Those 2 are, well, Baxter's very attached to Phil. That's his dog. But they'll go 13 miles if we're all together. Like in the morning, I'm trying to take 3 together. The most I like to do is 4 because Whitney likes to dawdle. She likes to go in the water. It's like hard watching 3 because Forrester's always running. He's always ahead of everybody. And he doesn't like people in any dogs, person in front of him. If he sees a runner, he will try to catch them on the trail. So I take them all together. But when me and my boyfriend take them out, we'll do like 13-mile runs with them in the mountains, and it's easier to manage. I can't manage 3 dogs, So usually in the winter, me and Forrester will go out and do 8 miles, and then we'll take the other ones for 3 miles.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's beautiful to watch that and to share that. A lot of people who run
They're
have
fun.
dogs. Yeah. And they have dogs with them.
Well, and we're teaching people by me having the little dogs that people that had wiener dogs are like, I didn't never think I could run with my wiener dog. And now everybody's running with their wiener dogs, because they're like, my dog could do 5 miles. They could hike. They could do stuff. And I go, you just got to make sure, you fuel them and bring water and things for them and they're easier to carry out if they get injured. They're so tiny.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. We had a dachshund a long time ago. We never ran with it. Had a bulldog that I loved to death, and he's gone now, but he was this bulldog was the greatest 200-foot sprinter in the world. Sprint 200 feet, and then he had to sleep. But he was amazing for those 200 feet. He wasn't a runner dog, but every time I would run and come back, into my space where he was at, he would be happy to see me. So he knew when I was dressed up in my gear that I would come back. He knew that for sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, and then he knew I was filled with sweat and salt. So he was happy.
They love to lick you. I have 3 of them on top of me, like licking my legs when I come back from the trail. Yeah, it's funny.
You become an expert at taking selfies with the dogs too. And that is an art. So
and I love doing videos with them. Like it was with Truman, I became really good at that. I'm like, I know I have to hold the camera down here when they're running to get good shots of them. It's like, but they're all over the board. 3 of them, it's like Truman was an expert. He always knew to look at the phone, and Forrester's gotten really good, but Baxter, like 3 together, you're like, come on, everybody. You're like, everybody's sideways and upside down and doing the thing.
Yeah.
Unless I have a cookie, so treats, and it's like they'll all line up, and I can get great shots as long as I have a treat in my hand.
So when you go out there, do you you have a little tripod, and you every time you go out, do you shoot something, or what do you? Oh, you just prop the phone up?
No, I just set it on a rock or sit it on a log, prop it up with my water bottle. Yeah, nothing fancy.
Wow, I
use nature.
Yeah,
I know. People are always shocked. They're like, "How did you take that?" And I'm like, "It's just years of doing it." I go, I have in the past, but I don't ever use it. It's easier just to put a water bottle on a rock, and put your camera in front of the water bottle and set the timer.
Yeah, that's it. One thing you do because you run so many races, only after you do so many races you can become an expert at understanding the mechanics and the processes of dealing with a DNF, a did not finish. And so sometimes you don't finish because if people in my category and my level of learning, which is very low, would be because I'm too slow. I'm getting pulled off the course because I didn't make that cutoff.
Yeah.
But there's other reasons why you do not finish.
But that's okay. Like that, at least you kept going. You went till you couldn't, till they pull you. It wasn't like you quit, and I always tell people just go. And a lot of people, they'll say, I'm just going to go until they pull me off the course. And if they're that slow, then at least they started and they did their best. But yeah, medical conditions are reasons to stop.
So that aside, let's say that from a DNF person, and maybe it's this 60-year-old woman we've been talking about, or maybe it's just anybody. But let's say, if your bone's sticking out, if you're injured, however we determine that, that's a different story, right? Or if you get pulled off because of medical reasons, you can't breathe, but you still want to run, and they're like, no, we're pulling you off. But
I've gotten pulled at Western States before.
Right.
And back in the day, they used to weigh you too. Like they don't weigh you now. Like they used to weigh you and then be like, "Oh, you can't go. You've lost too much weight," or but you're feeling fine. And I'm glad that they don't do that anymore because it was so old school. They always had this thing where you get weighed before the start of the race. So like the day before 100, you got to weigh in, and then they knew how much you weighed,
Yeah.
and then they weigh you again later on, and later on, you're going to lose a lot of water weight and stuff, but they would pull you and make you sit and make you
Yeah.
eat, make you drink. But that, I'm so glad that they realized, because you're like, fine. I'm like, I don't need to sit. You're wasting your time, and it's like through research, like everything changes. And with social media, it's like you don't need that. You're going to lose weight. Like in a 200-mile race, you're burning a lot of calories. You're going to lose weight, and you're going to, it's
Yeah,
just
that's worth
because
repeating.
you're burning, in a 24-hour period, you're probably burning 8,000 calories out there, a day.
Right.
And how can you eat that much?
You witnessed so much. So back in the day, I remember reading about from Jason Koop early in the days when he was baby and he first got pulled in. John von Hoff let him tape up Dean Karnazes' feet 1,000 years ago, whatever. So Jason Koop, the coach, groaning, evolving coach, and he tells the story about how imagine how those scales that were dragged out into the race course.
Yeah,
they're already messed up because they're not designed to sit out on a gravel parking lot anyway. You know what I mean? So you would come in, it weighed, and everything was. Thank goodness we've learned so much more from them. Putting aside that physical attributes of somebody pulling you off the course, you get injured. Talk about quitting in the context of DNF. This is the wizened Catra Corbett. This is the wizened Dirt Diva 333. After all these years, talk about somebody who's out there and they are aware of what a DNF is. But we just can't let yourself quit, because there's some part of you that's saying, "I'm protecting you. You better quit," and there's another part that's saying, "Shut up." So talk about that concept.
Well, rhabdo is a big thing. And I've known a lot of people that kept going, and I'm like, you haven't peed, or they peed really dark. And like, you're starting to shut your kidneys down, and I have a friend of mine that ended up getting carried off of a course at mile 85 because of rhabdo. He couldn't move. All of a sudden his body shut down and he wanted to keep going, but luckily he couldn't move. But he was so fixated on going and pushing himself so hard that he redlined, and he ended up having to get carried off a course and ended up in the hospital with rhabdo. And I see that with a lot more men, I think, than women get rhabdo, so that's something concerning. So you have to pay attention how much you're peeing, what color your urine looks like, because that's very important. If it starts getting dark, you need to start drinking more. You need to be balancing stuff. And it's really hard because everybody's different, especially when it comes to like salt and things like that. You could oversalt and then start having a lot of problems because you've taken in too much salt and start getting puffy and, the other way, or drinking too much water without electrolytes. That causes problems.
Right, too much water. That's right.
So those are medical things where you need to be paying attention and not be stupid and keep pushing. If your urine is the color of iced tea, you're in trouble. That's time to quit. And you may not be feeling anything, but that is time to quit, because that means your kidneys are having problems.
That's still reality of a medical scenario. That's still that other side. Now I want to talk about the other side, the demon where you're actually okay. You kind of know you're okay, but you're just your brain is telling you to stop, but the other part of your brain is saying, no, don't stop. You must.
Well, see, that's something where you have to learn to overcome stuff. So, like I was saying before, you have to, you're sore, you're tired, you're like, this is, you're making up stories on this little voice in your head, the negative ones, like, oh, you're doing damage, you shouldn't keep going, because you're hurting. Well, no, you have to learn to be able to push that aside and know the real signs of what an injury is and what a danger is. Like being sore is common. Being tired is super common. Being delirious is common, and that's when you're making the wrong choices. So when you get to that delirious point, that means nappy nap. Take a little napper, because that's when you can quit when you shouldn't quit, and like I mentioned that before, that is a huge thing. And so, like I said, a lot of people that are working the aid stations nowadays have done these things like I have, like if I see somebody coming in, I'm like, just let's take a nap. Don't even say anything. Take a nap and then we'll get you some food and then see how you're doing. You got time. You just got to look at the clock for them and be like, you got time. Let's see how you're doing. And then, assess the situation. And once they wake up, usually they're like, I'm just really tired, but I feel good now. I took a nap. I'm not delirious anymore. Because in the longer races, it does become dangerous when you haven't slept because you're wandering off the course. Good thing we have trackers on us and they can see. And I've been there where I'm delirious and I haven't slept. Maybe I think Bigfoot 200 was an example a few years ago that I got very little sleep. I want to say maybe a total of an hour altogether during this whole event. So I told myself in my head that Candace said I had to crawl over trees, the race director. I was like, oh yeah, she said I had to go over these trees. When that was not a reality, it was in my brain. I was so out of it that I literally started going over trees. And then I'm like, I snapped back into reality and I'm like, what? Oh my God, I got to get back to the trail. And then at one point I told myself, oh no, I'm supposed to go the opposite way on the trail. So I started going the way I came back and runners are coming at me. And this is the middle of the night. I'm heading towards the last aid station and they're like, Catra, you're going the wrong way. And I'm like, I know. And I was just going because nothing was connecting. And they were watching my tracker and the aid station captain they contacted him and said, you might want to send somebody out for Catra because they were watching at headquarters and they know me. And they're like, she is like, we don't know what she's doing, but we see her thing all over the place and she's not on the trail. And then at one point, all of a sudden I was on trail and it was stopped because then I laid down. I'm like, oh, they got to come get me. That's what's going to happen now because I can't go. So I wrapped myself up in my emergency thing. I laid down. I took like a 10-minute dirt nap and then I woke up and I was like, nobody's coming to get you. You got to get up and you got to go. So then I looked at my map to make sure I was going the right direction because a lot of times I'll wake up and start going the wrong direction because I'm so out of it. So then I finally make it to the aid station and they're like, we were coming out to get you. Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah. So, but luckily it started becoming daylight and that last 13 miles was on the road, but I was hallucinating that Truman was with me. Phil was pacing me, like stuff was still happening. I saw murals all over the place. So that's when I'm saying that becomes dangerous. So that's why they really push sleep in the 200s because it's not okay to be like that because people in these races think that demons are chasing them and they're fighting them off with their trekking poles. I mean, you just hear these stories. I know people are like, why would you want to run when all this weird stuff is happening?
Right.
But
was Bigfoot the one that of all the races did it happen to you most at Bigfoot?
Oh, that is the only time that's ever happened. Like anything where I was so out of my mind, like literally out of my mind was that race. And that's one of the hardest 200s, a lot of climbing in that race. And you're in the forest. So of course I'm seeing Bigfoots everywhere because I'm like, that's a Bigfoot. And then I would take pictures. So I literally was taking pictures of my hallucinations because I go, that really looks like one. And I actually sent some of these to my friends and they're like, that does look like a Bigfoot that long. Like I was seeing things, but I was like, doesn't that, and I told myself when I was delirious, I'm like, I'm going to take video and pictures of all of this because I know it's really not there, because I understand the concept of hallucinations.
Conceptually, right.
To be a drug addict.
But it looks like
but for somebody that's not ever been up for like multiple days on drugs, wouldn't know that. Somebody new to the sport that hasn't, they believe I'll be with people and they're like, yeah, I was pacing a friend of mine one year at the end of Moab and he's like, did you get the car key or the hotel key from the guy that was back there? And I was like, we were on the trail heading to an aid station. I go, what are you talking about, Angel? He goes, the man for the hotel to go get our room that we're going to. And I was like, oh my God, you need to sleep. So I got him to the aid station and made him sleep, but the whole way he was doing that. And I understood what he was going through. So I was focusing him to get him to the finish line. But I was like, this is bad. I got to the aid station because he was wanting to quit. And I'm like, you just need to lay down. And I got there and I'm like, you guys, we need a cot for him. He's coming in. He's talking nonsense. He doesn't even know where he's at. So I made him lay down and I still got him going again. But I was lying to him that the road was closer because he goes, I want to lay down. And I go, okay, you get another nap when you get to the road. We were like 9 miles from the road. And then it's a bike or the bike path. And then we're almost to the finish. But at this point, he had lost time and he wasn't going to finish ahead of the cutoff. Like we were going to get to the finish line and he was going to be like 10 minutes after the finish time. So I had to keep him going to get him to, and we ended up finishing with like 7 minutes to spare. So that year, but it's stuff like that that becomes dangerous. But anyways, and you can get injured during these times and people won't realize that they're injured because they're so out of it. It's
Right.
like,
Right. Yeah.
yeah. With
40,
the 200 specifically, you get crazy like that. Hundreds, you don't get it that bad at all. You may have hallucinations, but you're like hallucinating an aid station, or you think you see somebody standing there. But the whole 200-mile thing, they really push people to take sleep breaks because it can become dangerous.
Yeah. For the first 100-miler, our 60-year-old woman, for her first 100-miler, she's picked a good race. There's a lot of vert, but she's been used to climbing now, thanks to you and thanks to her glutes and thanks to your strength training that you suggested. So she's going to do 100. Should she plan on sleep? Let's talk about sleeping for 100s, and we'll get to the Bigfoot and 200 in a minute. But should she plan on sleeping for 100 during her 100 race?
No. So I would suggest that you train at night. Do some night running through the night as training, so you see how you operate on no sleep through the night. And so I never did that back in the day because it wasn't like anything that people talk about. But now, especially as you get older, if you're not used to being out all night, I've done so many of these, it's not that big of a deal for me. So training at night is really important. And I even suggest that for younger runners that are doing their first 100 milers, because you can be out there overnight, majority of us. So train at night. And if you need to nap, you can take a 10-minute sleep break. But if you have trained and did your nighttime training, you're not going to know what your body's how it's going to react. So a lot of times, as long as you're getting enough calories and nutrition in you, you're not going to get that kind of tiredness. And then, like I said, the caffeine is really important to start. Say you normally go to bed at 10 o'clock, I would say take a 200 milligram caffeine at that time. So you're ahead of that sleepwalking situation.
Makes sense.
And that way So, and I hadn't known any of that when I first started this, but if you're ahead of the game, so I'll take one, even in 200, I start at 10 o'clock at night, I'll take my first caffeine, and then I'll start doing it in half pills. So only 100 milligrams at a time, like another 3 hours later, I'll take another, if I need to, another 100 milligrams. And then usually I can get through the night just by taking a total of maybe 400 or 500 milligrams of caffeine. Okay. And that's going from 10 o'clock at night all the way to the morning. So I get rejuvenated. The minute the birds start chirping and the sun is starting to rise, I feel like I'm wide awake. So it's just, I always say, just get through the night and you'll be okay. And, it's true. It's a fact.
Before, I want to go back to Bigfoot for a minute, because that 44,000 feet of elevation is no joke, but it's critically important that we haven't talked about it yet, but you just mentioned it. So let's talk to her, because she needs to know, and all of her friends that look like me need to know. And that is this: because you did this, you've done this for decades. And so how we have fed ourselves as we do ultras has changed, just like shoe technology has changed. Technology has changed. Running vests, everything has changed, right?
Everything.
So talk about food and fuel, because it seems so important, and it's so individualized, so personalized. So talk about that.
In a 200-mile race. Yeah. So in a 200-mile race, you need to sit down and eat. So you come into an aid station specifically, like I don't need to eat much in a 100-miler. So gels and liquids and calories like that, maybe fruits and things like that, I can pretty much get through a 100-miler on liquid fuel, but lots of calories in that, like gel every half an hour. If you get sick of that, shot blocks, I do a lot of that. And then I do the tailwind, and it has calories and other stuff in it. But in a 200-mile, you need food. So you get to your aid station and you sit down. So it's early on, you're okay. You got your snacks and things like that, but some of these aid stations are 20 miles apart. They could be 6 to 8, depending on where you are and what type of the situation the terrain is on the course. That's 8 hours to get to the next aid station. So you've got to sit down, you get to your checkpoint, and they have a menu board. They got vegan, gluten-free options. They got burgers. They got whatever. So you look at the menu, and when you get there, like, things aren't laid out except for, like the gels and simple things. Like, it's all kind of preparing as you're there. They may have some rice heated up or eggs
Yeah.
if it's in the morning. So I come in and I ask for my Impossible Burger with some tomato on it and maybe mustard. And if they got like maybe lentil soup on top of that, like, I do whatever. I'm like, what do you got? Put some hummus on there, put a bunch of stuff to make calories in there. So, because I'm not using bread, they usually have gluten-free bread, but I just will tend to do a burger of sorts. And then if they have mashed potatoes, we'll do mashed potatoes too. So you get the majority of your calories in at the aid station. So now when you leave, you can leave with stuff. So I'll say, can I have 2 corn tortilla hummus wraps? Because those are usually, they have a lot of good food at these 200. So they'll put them in a little baggie for me, send me on my way. I got all my gels I got out of my drop bag. Got some sugar from ginger ale that I like, and sparkling water, drank that, and then take my walking tamale. I'll usually have those in my bag, which are awesome. These little walking tamales that have calories. And so look them up, walking tamales. So they're a new thing that's around. So I'll take one of those, have those 2 corn tortillas, and just have gels. So I'm out in that next section for 8 hours. I've already caloried up, remember? So you're like hiking out there, middle of the night. You're like digesting, everything's good, drinking my sparkling water that's helping me digest, and then continue on. And then, like, maybe in a couple hours, I'll take a gel, and then maybe it's, through the middle of the night, it's like 4 a.m. I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll have my corn hummus tortilla now, and, have one or have both, and then I'm good because I'm just doing my gels, and I already have enough calories in to sustain me to that next checkpoint. So that's what we're doing in these longer events, is you're getting to these bigger aid stations and you're sitting and you're eating to continue on. So that's how it works.
Okay. Big difference then between 100s and 200s.
Yeah, because you're moving faster. You're moving faster.
What about between a 50K and a 100 miler? Because a 50K and a 50 miler.
Yeah, 50K, you don't gels. Yeah, you're only going to be out there, like the slowest of us, like maybe a 9-hour cutoff or 10-hour. So you're not going to need a lot, like salty stuff. I'll grab like chips or something like that, that I'm not carrying with me, but you could pretty much use gels and, a high calorie, like tailwind type thing, and I'll
I'm glad you said look these up, because when you said a walking tamale, I'm like, well, this sounds like,
those
what do you mean?
Awesome.
What the heck is that?
And they're vegan, gluten-free.
Gluten-free, vegan friendly.
Vegan.
What the what?
And I discovered those at a race in Big Bear. I was doing a guest speaking book signing last June, or 2024 in June. And I was like, what are these? I go, I can't have one of those. The guy tried to hand me one. I go, are those vegan, gluten-free? And he goes, yeah. And I go, oh my God. And I ate one, and it was like, can I have another one? He goes, how many do you want? He goes, because it was towards the end of the race, and I did the short race. I go, give me, because I was actually doing a hike on the Pacific Crest Trail. I was doing just a long hike, like a 300 miler just for training. Yeah. And I said, I'll take as many as you want. And so then when I got home, so he gave me all these walking tamales. I was like, let me see. And across the street where I live, I happened to be in Manor Market, this little market. And I was like, walking tamales are in here. So then I was buying them there. And then I went online and I saw them on Amazon. And then I didn't realize they had 2 non-spicy versions, because Forrester likes them. And I'm like, I don't like giving him spicy. So they have 2 that are just corn, like a sweet corn one, and then another corn one that it's not mixed with beans, that's not spicy. So I carry those 2 for me and him, but I'll bring a little packet of hot sauce for me to put on it and eat it, and then let him eat, but usually in the 200s, I won't eat spicy. So I bring those other ones, but on training runs, I'll eat the spicy ones. They're great. Because I'll go out on
they're pre-cooked. It says you can microwave them. You don't have to. They're that. Wow.
So when I'm going out, for an 8-10-hour training run, I'll bring that as my main meal. Like when I get to a top of a peak, and then the rest of it's like shot blocks and gels. So So, but that's my main thing. I'm like, I'm going to have my walking tamale when I get to the peak.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said you're such an expert. You said, look that up. Because the way I'm thinking, walking tamale. It's a baggie. You put a tamale in your baggie and you're off in the race. You're like, no, it's a thing. Look it up. Would you? Come on.
Thing.
You're like,
It's an actual food.
Mark. It's a thing.
And
Yeah,
a lot of hikers and runners are using them now. I noticed, like, because when people tag them, and I'm like, they're like, really, they must have made the rounds at different races, because that's where I discovered it at a race. And now, and then they definitely I've been watching a lot of YouTubers on the Pacific Crest Trail because I find a few that I like to follow every year, and they are eating the walking tamales too, and their resupply drops. And I'm like, yeah, the walking tamales become very popular.
They are the thing. They are the thing.
And it's easy to carry. It's got 230 calories. Bam. Nutritious, sodium. It's got everything you need.
I chose consciously to start January 1 this year to be vegan completely. And I've done all kinds of things in the past and I like to experiment. It's fantastic. I've never felt so good as I feel now. So I'm done, man. It feels almost like deciding not to drink 1,000 years ago. Oh, no, It was that much
and
of a
there's
change.
so much more good food now. You got to remember in 1994 when I became vegan, tofu, that was it. Like they didn't even have different kinds of milks. They had soy milk. And back then I didn't really do soy because I had an intolerance to it. Now I'm okay with it. But back then I just was, I had quit doing drugs and things were like disrupting the whole system. When I became vegan, eating all that, because I started by eating all the soy all the time. It was like, no, it was bloating me. It wasn't working for me. So, but now we have like wheat, and I've always been kind of wheat free, gluten free, and now you can get everything you want. It's so much easier because people, when they would think vegan back then, it's a bunch of hippies drinking green juice,
Right, exactly.
And that's what I thought, because the first vegan I ever met was, gosh, it was probably when I was 19 or 20 when I was living when I first moved to San Jose, and he had this funky little place, friendly guy, always smiling, in a good mood, always like wheatgrass, and that's when I started eating wheatgrass. But his energy was just, every time I go in his store and I get, like, they had these bowls that he would make with the like granola and whatever and almond milk, but he was the first vegan I ever met. He had this little shop that sold stuff and made food, and so I'd go in there and I was vegetarian, but I was just like, this guy is, and I still think about him. I'm like, he was so happy and positive, this hippie dude, always pushing the green wheatgrass. So
I love it.
Getting more into health back then, and then once I got sober, it was like I started reading more books, but I always remember that guy, and I don't even remember his name, but I just remember his little store. And I just remember his smile and his, like, always happy when somebody came in, treated everybody like it was kindness and their best friend. So,
I love it.
Yeah, back
the
then
more I
there wasn't
learned
much
and read
choices.
about the runners,
but now there's so many choices. Like being vegan, it's so much easier. There's a lot of unhealthy vegan things, so that comes along with like all these different companies making vegan stuff. I'm like, there's a lot of people, I'm vegan, but it's like, unhealthy, crappy cookies, this, that, and the other. I mean, at least I'll eat that stuff in a race, but it's like, a vegan, cookie is the same as another cookie. It's like got all this other crap in it,
Right.
So,
right.
But even when I was doing raw for a while and fruitarian, there's so much good raw food recipes, but it just takes a lot of time. I'm like, I'm ADHD. I want like have mine now. I want my food. I don't want to wait 3 days for putting it in a food dehydrator and making this, that, and the other. It's like, I want it now. Yeah, that's like
I think that
juicing.
might be still.
I have a juicer, but I'm just like, I have to do all this stuff. I'm just going to go to the store and get a fresh made juice.
Yeah, too much work. Some of the stuff carries on my own isms that I take with me. Same thing, right? There's a lot of things that we still like to have it. When I have it now, I have it. One of mine though is to feel when I'm feeling there's some inefficiencies in my own physical or mental operating system, I make a change. So I after reading Rich Roll's work and Scott Jurek and there's so many people who so many people who have been vegan for years. And not because they are runners who want to be vegan to be better runners, but they just are. And because so many books, they've all written things, right? So
it's better for the environment.
There's that too. And then there's some people who do it because from a moral perspective, but honestly, for me, I was just getting more data. When I saw all these athletes who are aging athletes who are in amazing condition, treating their bodies right, and really just doing what's right and good for them. That's when I flipped that switch, because I was paleo for a long time because I love my meat,
Yeah.
but I really switched it up and everything changed. I just feel I'm so much
So
better.
much better. Yep.
The one thing I didn't want to give up on was quantity of consumed things that I'm eating. My friends always used to say, dude, you didn't have a diet problem. You have a portion size problem. So once I became vegan and they see how much food I consume, they're like, oh man, this is you for sure. You must be in heaven. And I am. I
Yeah.
have no problem consuming what I have to, the amount of things I have to consume
Do
in
you
order
have
to.
a fast metabolism?
Oh, I
You have
do.
a speed? Yeah. A lot of guys do. And so, yeah, you have to, in order for you to get all the nutrients, you have to eat a lot more.
I do. And I think finally everybody who knows me, like, oh, I'm so glad you discovered this now, because even they all tell me, like, man, I wish you could have discovered this 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because they know how much I consumed that back then. So anyway, it doesn't matter. But I'm just grateful to have discovered it as and when I discovered it. That's for sure.
Well, I'm glad you did too.
All right. How do we, as we get older, couple of questions, because this has been amazing. You got so much good passion, energy, and I'm proud that we didn't go through your 8,000 wins and 80 trophies on Ultra Sign Up and
No, they
300.
can look that up.
Exactly. It's the precious medals that you're doling out with the audience and with me and with this 60-year-old woman who you've really inspired a lot. I'm telling you, you're channeling for her and for me. So now that you're over 60, do you define how do you define a win or success, or not success? How do you define a win over 60? Is that any different than just waking up and being filled with gratitude every day? Or what's a win
I'm
after
just
60?
happy that my body is allowing me to keep doing this. Like nothing's really changed. I mean, of course we slow down, but that's normal. That's just part of the territory with aging. But you know what? I feel grateful for every day, that I can keep going. I mean, there's a lot of people that can't, I noticed a lot of people that are super fast or were super fast, they tend to don't have as much longevity as somebody that's maybe a little bit slower, mid-pack runner, because of beating up your body, pushing so hard all those years. And a lot of these people come from way background. They were running in high school, then they went to college and they quit for a while, then discovered ultra running, but still they had been doing so much for so long, and just the speediness. You tend to get more injured. If you look at a lot of the top fast runners, like they're not doing as much because they're not stacking races on top of each other, because they're doing it with such intensity that would really crush them. Like you can only do so much. We're going at a fun, I call it the party pace. Like you can keep doing stuff. Like I can stack races, and most fast athletes, they can't stack races because they're giving it all out. They're picking their main race of the year and they're giving it their all. I mean, not that I'm not giving it my all, but my all is more at a fun pace.
Yes, I hear those kinds of athletes a lot. I also, just for me, I never see the concepts of revenge or redemption playing a role in my race choices or anything. So
Yeah.
I'm like, if I go to a race and I don't finish it, or I DNF that race or something, if I put it all out on the table, and usually I do, and I have, there's no such thing as redemption for me. No, 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 no. I participated. What
Yeah.
happened at the end was, oh, I didn't even get to finish that race. Oh, but that's it.
Yeah.
That's the end of that chapter. I don't need to go back to it. So when I looked at your runs, when I looked at your races, and again, I obsessed over them, Catra. I looked at all those entries in a couple of spreadsheets. I'm like, okay. And I needed to do that because that's how I realized, wait a minute, I'm just going to talk with her. She's the GOAT. I'm not going to talk about her races. Anybody can see them, as you said.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. When I see the stacking over the years, and there were some times in your late 40s, and then in the when you're early 50s, and literally because I'm trying to, for myself, figure out, how do I pick my race? What am I doing? And so just for me, I'm doing something different each time. And it's not about the distance. It's about an experience of one thing or another. But
Yeah,
when
a
I saw
challenge.
your races and I saw Westergaard's races selected and Jesse Haynes' race selection and Jeff Browning and a bunch of Pete Livingstone, John Parks, a bunch of people have done a lot of
Yeah, John, I
200
like
and
John
done
Park.
long races, right?
Huh?
I've decided that, wait a minute, I don't need to wait for anything. So I'm doing my first couple of 100Ks shortly. And right after that, I've stacked up already my first 100. And after that, already a couple of months after that, I'm doing my first 200. And I'm doing it now. And just turned 62. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a good year for me. And I just started. I'm a baby. I'm big. I very barely any races at all. But what you just said is the magic of it all. So you stack because you maintain some level of fitness and you're interested in doing the next one and another one,
Yeah,
right?
because to me, I like challenging myself, and it's like if you're already training for something and you're already in shape, then it's just using it out as a training run, especially the bigger races, those are usually my goals are the bigger races like next year, the 300 and the 200. That a lot of these, like I said, I'm doing the 2 100s before I do Arizona Monster 300 as a training. They're my training runs. Sure, I can do one back to back, it's like it's a challenge. So,
My friend, this imaginary friend that we've created in this
mhm.
conversation, the 6-year-old woman, now I feel like she's a good friend of mine already. So let's say both of us are going to do Bigfoot next August. Now we haven't done it before, but we don't care. But what we are listening
That's
to is
okay.
stories from people like you, right? You did Bigfoot, and Bigfoot that was one of that. I've learned at this moment, I've learned how important my sleep schedule is going to be
Yes.
tackling Bigfoot because of what you just said. Talk about that. Talk about any particular race, maybe Bigfoot, maybe Western states, maybe Badwater. Pick any one of them that seems particularly challenging in a way that allowed you to have some kind of a comeback story. You might not call it redemption, but some kind of comeback story from one of these iconic races.
So they're all different races, and I'll tell you why. So, like, I would like to do Badwater one more time, and I'm going to do it on the 40th anniversary, not next year, but the following year. I'm working social media again next year. So, the biggest part of that race now is making it to that 52-mile cutoff in the with time, time to spare. So, I'll have to do speed running, work on my speed for that 50-mile section to be able to make that. I think it's 14-hour cutoff or 13-hour cutoff. So that in itself is going to be a challenge because that's the only thing I worry about is getting to that point to be able to finish the race, which I should have no problem if I train for it. And then with Western States, I don't want to do that race again only because I want to leave a spot for somebody else that's never run it. And I've started it, I think, 8 times, 7 times, and I've got my finishes there. So I, and that is a race where you had at our age, you have to work on the speed. It gets harder to be able to finish that race with the 30-hour cutoff with the amount of climbing that's
Right,
in there.
right,
You got to go out
right,
of the
right.
gate strong. You got to bank time. You got to be strong. You got to hit Forest Hill and be able to run as fast as you can on those downhills, down to the river. So that is a whole nother training as you get older, and you look at those older over 60 and 70 that are finishing it, they have to work really hard at finishing those events. So Bigfoot, not so much. You just got to wrap your head around 200. And that's the hardest piece for people is wrapping their head around that number, 200. And you can't look at it like 200 miles because you're going to be multiple days. That's like, whoa, I don't, 4 days and maybe up to 5 days, that's a big stretch. You just go, I tell people, just make it into like, I'm doing 50K. You get to the 50K. You're going to do 50 mile, get to the 50 mile. Get to the 100K, get to the 100-mile. After that, let's get to the 20-mile next aid station. Let's get to the 10-mile next aid station. So you just start using it like that to wrap your head around it to make it easier. I mean, everything seems so hard if you don't break it down and know what you have to do. Like I said, Western states, you got to work on as you get older. If you're not a fast runner to get through those checkpoints, I would have to train hard to get that finish there. And Badwater, not as much. I just have to train. I'm not used to running on the road right now, and I'd have to train faster. So I have to go back to a whole different training process than I do for a 200-miler. So training for that. And like I said, with the 200, you just gotta, I don't think of it, oh my God, I'm gonna run 200 miles. Cause then I would be like, that's daunting. That's huge. So I always tell myself when I'm out there, I'm on a backpacking trip, but I have 8 stations and I don't have to carry a 19-pound pack. I'm only carrying like 10 pounds with me, and they're going to have food for me, and they're going to have sleeping for me. I don't got to carry all that gear. So that's what I do.
Thank you. What great advice, my friend. I think you're going to you're sending these runners off with all the right materials they need.
Yeah,
that is
they're all going to
100%.
finish.
That's 100%. So from the book, which people need to see and read, and I don't know if this happens, maybe because you're such a familiar face, I also have a sense it's kind of like an actor or someone you see that you like them as in the work. And then you see him on the street, and this happens to me because where I live, see him on the street, and I just start talking to them like I know them. And of course, they can tell that they're talking to me because I think they know, right? But so there's a character, maybe the Dirt Diva 33 on the trails, but you're a very real human being, and you're a very real person. And the book invites us to understand the kind of the complexities of this human being, and always learning, and always still making mistakes like we all are. But here we are showing up for ourselves, right? With that said, the thing I like to hear from everybody is, has the why we run? Why are you running? Why do you run? Has that changed? The why for you, has that changed over the years?
No, I run because I love being outside. I love being outdoors and experience everything it has to offer. So that's always been my why. I just love getting out there, seeing what I see, doing what I do, and even one day when I can't run and just hike, I'll still do the same thing. I'll just get outside. It'll still be why I do it, and it really has it helped with my sobriety, and it's kept me sober. It helps with my mental health. So that's all part of it too. So getting outside helps my mental health. So it makes me feel good, and you get those endorphins. So that's always been my why. I just, I want to see stuff. I want to see the beauty. That's why I'm out there.
Last statistic I heard somebody claim that they wanted to break was this one. Bob Becker, who is the race director for the Keys 100. Those, I don't know. I know
Bob.
Okay. So,
right.
Friends. 3 years, right. So with all the Badwater. So 3 years ago, tough finish, but now he just finished it at 80. He finished Badwater at 80 years old.
Amazing.
And I just heard somebody say recently, someone who you also probably know, she goes by Ultra Pam 100. She's done tons of 100-mile races, right? She just said, and she's very excited because she's turning 70, and she's excited to turn 70. And she just publicly proclaimed, she said, I'm going to break Bob Becker's oldest finisher at Badwater record. She's turning 70, and Bob just broke that record at 80. So Pam's attitude is, I got 10 years, and he might. Exactly. So I'm going to do it. So I
love it.
So, Catra, we may, I want to be here. I just started running, and I think I need to run till I'm 100 so that I can feel like, I'm still in the game, right? So
every now and then, something will pop up in my feed, and they'll show a 100-year-old doing a 5K, 10K, half. I'm just like, wow, that's who I want to be.
That's who you want to be. Well, you're heading toward.
Just getting out of bed at 100 years old that's an accomplishment. I met a guy that was 95 doing across the years a couple of years ago. And he did the 7-day or the 6-day, and he did 100 miles through those 6 days. But every time I'd see him, because he'd sleep every night, and I'd share him on. And he goes, I'm like, you're amazing. He goes, no, you're amazing. He goes, that's taking me all these days. You're like 300 miles in. And I go, you know what? I go, just getting out of bed is a win. When I'm 95 years old, and his 2 daughters were in their late 60s out there doing it too. I was just like, you are amazing. He goes, no, I'm not. And he's kind of like a little grumpy guy. And I was just like, you are, just getting out of bed. That would be You know,
So
if
a
we're
lot of
not in a
gratitude for that.
wheelchair or yeah, so that's to me an accomplishment right there, you know. Anybody in their 90s that can still move and set goals for themselves like that is just that those are my idols. Those are who I strive to be.
All right. So you're only 61. You still got a little bit of time to go.
I do.
Can you imagine yourself, can you see yourself as we wrap this up? Can you see yourself running until you're taking a dirt
Until I
nap?
can.
The final one?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as long as my body is willing and able, I'm going to do it.
Okay. Then this is the last one. I promise. This is the good one.
Okay.
Have you ever thought about, because now you're so perfectly suited for this, I think, but have you ever thought about creating a very unique, but creating an ultra yourself? Have you
Well, I
thought
used to
about
put on, me and my two friends would put on a 50K race in Fremont back in the day when I was living there. And then once COVID hit, we stopped doing it, but it was called a Fat Ass. It was a free race and we did it every January. So we had, I think at one point, 80 people and it was free. We didn't charge, but we would get a permit through the park because we had anything over 30, you have to have a permit for. So we would
Right.
pay and get a permit and donate all our own money. And then, you know, we're not charging you. You don't get a shirt, you don't get a medal, but runners would donate money towards the food on the course and stuff. So I was doing that, but my ADHD doesn't allow me to do that. I have to be running the race. I would still run the race too. I'm running and I can't. Yeah. I mean, I don't mind volunteering, but yeah, I don't want to I have so many great routes that I was just talking with my friend yesterday, who's a race director, who's going to be putting on a 275-mile race out here in 2 years. And I'm like, oh, we got to do this and that. Somebody should do a 50. He goes, why don't you do it? I go, I don't want to. You're a race director. I go, you do it. I'll map out the course. I go, I have so many cool courses, but I don't want to do it. There should be a half marathon here in Bishop. I don't want to plan it. I want to do
come
it.
on. You're the
Maybe
ambassador.
One day if I have enough people helping me, but yeah.
You're the perfect ambassador. Yeah.
I know, but
you don't need to
My
run.
brain. Yeah, my brain just would want to run and not do everything.
Yeah, don't do it. I agree. Now that I hear you saying that, yeah.
I have plans. I can plan it. I can plan it for everybody.
You can just be the most important participant in every one of these races.
There.
You can play that role perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That perfect. All right. This has been so much fun. I'm so grateful that you joined us.
Thank you.
Clearly, it's the energy and the vibe that matters, and you're crushing it. You're nailing it, and I can't wait to see you the next time. See you on the course somewhere. And that's it.
You're going to be doing the 200, so hey.
Oh yeah, no, I'll see you. I'm going to see you at that mile 195 aid station. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm here, Catra.
Or come out to Grandmasters. Come out to Grandmasters.
Yeah, that's a good one too. I'm glad you mentioned that. I'll have to.
Yeah,
that sounds like the perfect.
Yeah, let a lot of your audience know about that race. You know, because a lot of people don't know about it. You know, that want to do an ultra, but they're like, I'm too slow. I'm too, you know, and they're 60s. They could do a 50K and be able to finish it there. You know,
no DNFs, 100% finish rate, 7 of the Grandmasters. Okay.
So
perfect.
Even people that are in their 60s that want to do their first ultra can come there, and I don't even know how much they probably give you. I think the same amount of time to finish the 50K as they do the 100K and the 100 miler, and the 50 miler. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have 48 hours.
You did Leona Divide 100 3 times, finished it 3 times, and Kiera Henninger runs that race most recently.
Yeah, it was before she had it.
Yeah, that was in the pre-days, in the pre-game.
Yeah.
She let the 50-mile runners this year, she had the same cutoffs as the 100-mile race because it's the same look,
that's
right?
Awesome.
Yeah, so it really gave people like me the opportunity to be, I see how it works. I get it. Now I can understand how it can work.
I'm glad she did that because more races should do that. If they're already having the long event out there, what they're not utilizing something extra or having to take resources and put them somewhere else, because if the 100-mile course is the same as the 50-mile course twice, right? Or out and back or whatever, you might as well. And it just helps, older runners that are slower that still want to do this, and I hope that more race directors will do that. So as we get older, we can still finish these things.
Yeah. Now, I don't know how much of that was her plan, but when I saw that, I didn't realize that had happened. And then I was already signed up. Like, oh, this is going to be great. But because of it, I'm doing everything else I'm doing in part is because of Kira's decision, unbeknownst to me, but her decision, knowing that would probably incentivize somebody because, it took me forever to finish. I ran in the night. It was just wonderful. Anyway, that's why I'm coming back to do the 100 this year. So last year there was nobody in their 60s to finish the Leona 100.
Maybe I'll come do the 100 miler. We'll be the oldest woman and man in there.
Man, I'm telling you, if you come out to the
I would like to do it. I like that course because I like being on the PCT. See, because hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, I like doing races that I can reminisce when I'm out there. Like, oh, I was here once when I was hiking too.
Exactly. So you come out and reminisce. I'm going to look out for you.
I will because I haven't done, that's a new one for me to do. Yeah. And that's in May?
April 18th.
Oh.
April 18th.
Yeah. Well, let's see how Arizona Monster goes. I could do it after Arizona Monster.
Yeah, that's what I'd like because then I would actually be able to run some miles with you. Yes, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see.
All right.
All righty.
Catra, you're amazing.
It's so good talking to you. Thank you. And send me all the info when you get ready to put it up and I'll post it on my socials.
I will do all that. Thank you. And please tell Forrester
my battery is going to die. Like I'm down to 12%.
We did it. We mastered it then. We
I know.
Really
I was like, I don't think I didn't have a charger close by. I was like, oh shit, I hope it doesn't die.
We did it. All right.
We made it. I sure will. You take care.
Take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.